injustice that was going on, the lack of hospitality that was going on with Sodom and Gomorrah, and how America is actually portraying the same character as Sodom. That's why when you hear the scriptures, you might hear today being known as, the modern day Sodom and Gomorrah, or the modern day Egypt, or the Most High might compare us to any other kingdom or rulership that was here. So he went over and showed those points. I think the greatest point was showing that Sodom and Gomorrah was not really just known for what they may call sodomy or homosexuality. It was a lot deeper than that. Just like when they talk about Jezebel being a whore, where in scriptures does it ever say that Jezebel was a whore? Mm-hmm. Oh, you got that Jezebel spirit. And she's never done anything dealing with whoredom, only except when it came to the worshiping of other gods and causing the children of Israel to worship other gods. But other than that, she was faithful to her husband. And I say that to bring back the point that Sodom and Gomorrah was just not about homosexuality. Their rules, their regulations, their inhospitable treatment towards people was recorded in scriptures, and now we see, because we read outside of these books, that it was just much more than that. And Yaredun did a great class last week, which was a follow-up from the part 1 that he did. I think he did a great job to show the comparison. This week, me and Kahan Rashim have been set up with the challenge to go over Egypt. So this particular class is considered the last days. Help me out here.
Last days, let my people go.
Let my people go. Mm-hmm. So before we get into that, and we go into this next series, Let My People Go, to bring you the situation that was in Egypt, what caused it to be great, and bringing out some of the similarities to ancient Egypt, but also America. We showed the similarities of Sodom and Gomorrah last week, like I said, which Kahan Yaredun did a great job. And we're set with the task to show you the differences or the comparisons, to show you that Egypt was the same as America today. So before we do that, before we get started, we want to go ahead and give our announcements as we do at this time. So we first want to bring out the current calendar, right? The 8th edition. I know you guys heard a lot about this 8th edition, the calendrical study guide, and how much it changed people's lives. Well, guess what? We're sold out. You missed your opportunity to get one of the greatest pieces put together, I think, and I would say, in this 20th century, 21st century, today. In the 2025, I don't think you'll be able to find anything more comprehensive coming out of anywhere else except for the House of Wisdom, and you have missed your opportunity. So the scriptures say, buy the truth and sell it not. You ain't getting mine. But what we do have, right, is the 8th edition, right? This is the 2025-2026 calendar, which has the epoch of the sun, also life-changing. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't hurry up and get you a copy, it's going to end up the same way with the 5th edition. There's not going to be any more. And guess what? I have my copies of the 5th edition too. You ain't getting a copy of that. So get it while it's here. I think we still have the 4th edition dealing with the Tree of Life, which you should also get before it's no longer available. I was kind of shocked to see that the 5th edition was no longer available. But this is what we have. And I'm going to go ahead and do the Masonic Faith, okay. Messianic Faith. Another book, life-changing. It just seems to me that everything that we, like, to give you an example, we got the 8th edition, life-changing. We have Messianic Faith, life-changing. We have the AP course, which is now the AP 6. I think it's the candidate class, AP 6 candidate class. Mm-hmm. Life-changing. How is it that so many things here at the House of Wisdom are life-changing. And then when I look out into the world, into these other groups, I don't see those things. Mm-hmm. At one point, One West, when they was bringing out the information, or some of the other brothers that was bringing out the information about us being the true Hebrew Israelites, it was life-changing then.
Yeah.
But we haven't grown from then, from that point until now, that we know we Israelites, but a lot of us don't know what to do as Israelites. Yeah, we keep the law, statutes, and commandments, but is that it? What are we missing? And what I felt that was missing when I came in was worship. True worship. Sacrificing unto the Most High. You say that sacrifice is done away with. I say the scriptures say it's changed.
Yes.
But what has it changed to? Never says that it's done away with. So next, so again, we got the Messianic faith. We have the 8th edition that we have available, very life-changing, and the 4th edition. Next, we'll talk about our tithes that we have available here at the House of Wisdom. All the tithes, the flowers, the flour, the oil, the wine, everything that is being sold out of here for tithes have been touched and put together from scratch by the priest's hands. Well, you know, you can't do frankincense and myrrh from scratch, but we had our hand in picking out the quality of this frankincense and myrrh. So the tithes that are here is not money, it's the agriculture, the flour, the wine that we can use according to the scriptures for our 7th covenant sacrifices. Our sacrifices done away with? No, we still sacrifices. We still sacrifice, and this is what the tithes, the agriculture, is for. It hasn't been done away with, and it only has been changed where the tithes that are given now is not animals. It's the tithe over the flour, the corn, the oil, the wine. We use those as our new 7th covenant spiritual sacrifices now. So we have those same tithes that the priesthood use, make, and eat here at the House of Wisdom. We have the same exact batch on sale. It would behoove you to go ahead and support the priesthood, buy your own tithes from us. Why would you want to go to the enemy or outside when you have the priesthood here with their own particular hands, making sure that the product that you receive is primo?
And priests, we got a news flash. They just bottled the remaining of the muscadine wine. So
there
we got
a
new batch of wine in. So get yours before it's gone because it's delicious.
Yeah, you heard that,
Very
right?
good.
We just bottled it up. We didn't just buy it from the store.
Right.
This is what I'm saying. This was done by the hands of the priesthood from scratch, from picking the grapes, the muscadines, or the fruits from the trees itself, and then bringing it here and putting it in work. So we can have these, or the wine for the oblations of the Most High, pure and clean, and we know what we've done with it. No more animal fats, giving up offerings to the Most High with this abomination in it.
So this batch has a nice age to it. It's been sitting, it's been marinating.
Yeah.
So it should be extremely flavorful.
Yeah, and if that was any piece of what we had this morning,
right,
it was delicious.
God.
So other than that, moving on, we did briefly talk about it. The apprentice priest 6 candidate class is here. If you are interested in the priesthood and learning about what the priests do and actually coming on board and taking on the responsibilities of a priest, call up, register, and we'll do our part to make sure that everybody who's coming on board is acceptable to come into the priesthood, because not everybody is acceptable to be a priest. You may want to be a priest, but you may not be an acceptable material for the priesthood. And this is what we determine, not only in the interview process, but also in your tenure in the class. We actually, the priests, look and say, this brother will be a good candidate, or this brother needs this to work on, and so forth. So again, the priest class, life-changing. And if you like what you been hearing, if it's changed your life, if it's changed your family life, support with your free will offerings, not your tithes or your tights, but your free will offerings. Free will offerings is money, whatever you can donate, land, buildings, whatever the case may be. Tithes, again, are your agriculture, your flour, your oil, your wine. These are the tithes. So if you like what's been going on, support us. Send us some money, or whatever else can be done. Again, we don't live in America for free, and we don't get anything for free. And if it is for free, you paying for it some way or another. And lastly, like, comment, and subscribe. Most High willing, eventually enough of us can like and comment and subscribe, some positive comments. When you type up the children of Israel, the Hebrew Israelites, maybe one day the House of Wisdom will be first on the list to keep you from going through all the trash before you come to the House of Wisdom. But other than that, Priesthood, got anything else you want to add to that, or no?
No, I didn't have anything
If not, we can go ahead and begin this series on the last days, let my people go. So, going to say a few things. I lost my paper over here. I gotta find it.
Okay. All right. So here, we're gonna begin with this class. So the focus and the objective of this class is to see the correlation, the principles that drove Egypt, how they are underlined in Western society now. So a lot of times when we're reading the scriptures, we always like to say that you got to use your chamber imagery and immerse yourself in the book and to see how culture was then and how it is now. Sometimes you can just read through scripture and it just, you'll miss some of the substance and essence of what the scriptures are trying to say because you're not visualizing or taking into account the things that happened in that society at that time. And so like Priest Yardan brought out in his class, the Sodomites, who would ever thought, I never knew that, Sodom and Gomorrah had a covenant with the Most High to keep his will and his way. And that's the reason why they were going through everything that they were going through. Not because of, homosexuality and, those were peripheral things, but the main thing was they were in covenant with the Most High. And so now we're looking at the spirit of Egypt being on people now. And so we're going to go over those points to show the correlations of what was going through Egypt at that time to what's happening now in our country. Because at the end of Priest Yardan's class, it's really an amalgamation of these different wicked cultures. You have Babylon, you have Egypt, you have Sodom and Gomorrah, and that's part of the wickedness of our country because it's all amassed together, but you still can see the reflection of that Egyptian spirit or that Sodomite spirit or that Babylonian spirit on people and how they operate in this country today. So as we go through the class, just keep your mind on that principles. Now, it's never going to be a one-on-one comparison because times change, right? They had to live in brick and mud huts. We got, skyscrapers and buildings, so it's not a one-on-one, but you want to look at the principles, and we're going to get into that. What are these principles that drive behavior and actions and the things that they're doing?
So with that, Apprentice Priest, Ibran, you can give me Revelation, the 11th chapter and the 8th verse, and Kahan Rashim, you give me Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter and the 7th verse. And when you get that, go ahead and read.
Revelations 11, verse 8.
So we're going to touch on what Kahan Yardan brought up last week and then go ahead and move through this class. So just hold on. We got a lot to go through. And go ahead and read when you got it.
And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt.
It is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Yardan headed up with this scripture last week, and then, or the week, 2 weeks before that, the class that he did last week, and started off with this, but then began to show you the characteristics of Sodom based upon scriptures, right? Spiritually, and their dead bodies lied in the street of that great city, which is spiritually called Sodom. And he did a great job in showing you that America was that great city that was called Sodom, spiritually. And it starts from here and it spreads out throughout the four corners of the world. But here we see that they uphold more the practices of Sodom and Gomorrah and Egypt than anywhere else in the world. But go ahead and read that again.
Revelations 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Most High was crucified.
So we're going to focus on this week about Egypt and how America is compared, or how they have similarities to Egypt. And some of their customs and traditions that they keep are well-known practices that come from Egypt. They're not hiding this information whatsoever. So Kahan Rashim, Jeremiah 23 and 7.
Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Most High Abba Yahweh, that they shall no more say, the Most High Abba Yahweh liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt.
Because we know that that was one of the greatest stories to ever be told, along with the story of Yahweh Shai, right? So everybody knows the story of Egypt. And if everybody doesn't know, we know that the vast majority of the people that are in the earth, they know about the story of Egypt. And why do I say that? Because the largest religions in the world, which is Islam, so you know they was taught about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We got the Catholics who read the Bible, so you should understand the story of Egypt. And then we got Christians. Those are the three largest religions in the world. So that's telling me that the majority of the people of the world, you know about Egypt. But it's saying here in Jeremiah 23rd, the 23rd chapter in the 8th verse. Read it again, Kahan Rashim.
Oh, you want verse 7, you mean?
Yeah, verse 7. Salakia, Khan.
Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Most High Abba Yahweh.
Who says this? The Most High. He's giving you an insight of prophecy that's getting ready to take place. Go ahead.
That they shall no more say, the Most High liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt.
And that thing was so great that was done with Egypt by the hand of the Most High. To this day, we're still talking about it. Movies on it. So the Most High said, yeah, what's getting ready to come, this is going to dwarf what's getting ready to come. So y'all now they're going to be talking about how great Moses was and how the Most High used Moses to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. What's going to happen? Go ahead and read on.
Verse 8. But the Most High Abba Yahweh liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. So
the Most High is saying that this second Exodus that's coming out, not only from spiritual Sodom, not only from spiritual Edom, but coming from out of America and all the four corners of the earth. What's going to happen in these days with the Most High freeing the children of Israel out of these lands that they're in captivity and bring them back to their own land? This story is going to be talked about more and on a greater level than what happened in Egypt.
Con.
And this is why our attention is focused on Egypt today, to show you the comparisons and how the Most High showed us certain things on a microcosm when it comes to things of the old. And it's in a representation of things that was to come, as we say, on a micro or the macrocosm. So that Egypt situation was a small thing that happened on a small level. So what's getting ready to happen now is going to be Egypt times 10. Mm-hmm. And the miracles and the things that the Most High is going to do, and the plagues that the Most High is going to bring on this place before it comes down. And the only reason why it's being done, or it's been done to Egypt, or it's getting ready to be done here in America and all over the world, is because of their wickedness. Yaradon went over it last week, the wickedness of the children of Sodom and Gomorrah, the pride, you know what I mean, the complacentness, you know what I mean, the lack of humility, the lack of hospitality. So all of these things contribute to wickedness. And as that was destroyed, so will these countries, especially America, in these days. Not specifically America, but everything is getting ready to fall.
Mm-hmm.
All of these kingdoms are getting ready to fall. So we're not just looking at America and focusing it on America. We're focusing on all the kingdoms. But today we're focusing on how America is in parallel to Egypt, does the same thing that Egypt has done, and has put the people of the Most High in the same situation, we're talking about America, as they were put in Egypt. So with that, Khan Rashim, let's go ahead and read about taxes, right? We're going to read about taxes because this is where it kind of all started from, Egypt. And America picked that up. And not only that, but other things that Egypt did and other things that other societies have done, we are showing the contrast that America has picked up some of their ways and exactly doing some of the same things that Egypt did to the people of the Most High that they're doing to us today. So let's go ahead and let's start off by reading stress about taxes, blame the ancient Egyptians.
The civilization developed the world's first known tax system around 2000
after the fall of Adam.
After the fall of Adam.
Right. So the time that Egypt was in rulership and were doing these things was about maybe 2,000 to 2,400 years after the fall of Adam. So they'll give you all your times and dates, but what we've realized here, that their times and dates that they use for certain events are not accurate. And we should already know that by now.
Yeah.
These people don't tell the truth about nothing. They didn't then, and they not now. It's the one who we call Abba, the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, is the one that's revealing these things to us to this day. And I give thanks to the Most High for that. So let's go ahead and read on.
From mummified pharaohs to the Great Pyramid of Giza, ancient Egyptian iconography dominates the modern world. But few realize that the Egyptians also left behind a more practical legacy, taxes, and the principles of administrative government.
See, this is what most of us don't know. We hear a lot about Egypt, but a lot of us, you know, especially black folks, they want to talk about the gods of Egypt and some of the knowledge that Egypt has contributed to the earth. And I want to put an end to that right now because it almost sickens me when I hear about how great Egypt was, when I knew, or when I know that according to the Josephus, Abraham studied the Egyptians, checked them out, and then went and said, you know what? I studied you guys. I watched you. I have communications with you. This foolishness, this that you call wisdom, is not wisdom at all. And he began to teach them about the wisdom of the Most High according to the Josephus, and they looked at Abraham as a god.
Mm-hmm.
And they learned their wisdom and their knowledge from Abraham. So why are you still riding, you know what I mean, the coattails of Egyptians when they learned from our forefathers, the Hebrews? Knock it off. You can't bring me nothing about Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Egypt was a great society, but it was great in wickedness. It wasn't great in righteousness. It was great in wickedness. And our people are still holding on to their old slave masters, bigging them up when you have your own people and your own culture to big up. But let's go ahead and read.
The world's earliest known system of taxation emerged in Egypt at the dawn of civilization itself, around 2000 after the fall of Adam. When the first dynasty unified Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt, ancient Mesopotamia soon followed suit. The practice persisted for millennia, continuing after the fall of the ancient Egypt in the 1st century BCE and into the present day. But while Egypt's tax system evolved and diversified over the course of the civilization's existence, the basic concept remained the same. The state levied taxes to pay for its operations and maintain social order. After all, the Egyptians always had royal building projects and foreign wars to fund.
Just like America.
Khan.
No different. And you'll see the comparison, the parallels to those things. So understand this too, because it speaks about the point that he brought up about Egypt, and then after they fell, Mesopotamia came and picked up some of their practices. It is customary, right, that when a kingdom goes in and take over another kingdom, the kingdom, like to give you an example, when the Greeks came in and they took over Egypt and they took over these other countries, they took some of their things that made them great, kept it with their system, and then added on their own certain things to them. So every time another nation was conquered by another one, the things that were good or the things that made them great, they kept it.
Con.
So Mesopotamia kept the taxes. You know, the Persians and the Medes, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and all the like came and took that particular aspect from the Egyptians and applied it to their kingdom. But let's go ahead and read.
The legacy of ancient Egyptian...
Go ahead and jump to the... No, go ahead and read that. Go ahead.
All right, okay. The legacy of ancient Egyptian administration and diverse systems of taxation, from income taxes to custom taxes, is highly visible in modern forms of government, says Toby Wilkinson, an Egyptologist at the University of Cambridge in England.
Right, so that didn't start here. They got it all from the Egyptian Empire. Go ahead.
And the author of The Rise and Fall of Ancient Egypt. The fundamental basis of human society has not shifted in 5,000 years, Wilkinson explains. You can recognize a variety of techniques of governments invented in ancient Egypt that haven't changed today.
So he's telling you, somebody who studies this type of stuff, I don't particularly study that kind of information in general, but I know how to go in, bring it out, and bring it to you guys. So he's telling you, for my studies, if you go back 5,000 years, pretty much things have been running the same as far as these taxes and how certain things in government are run. Go ahead.
And that they were invented in Egypt.
Go ahead.
For most of its history, ancient Egypt levied taxes on goods, with officials collecting dues in the form of grain, textile, labor, cattle, and other commodities.
So just like today, they have people set up, third parties set up to collect the taxes or help you to do your taxes. They had the same thing that was going on, and they collected taxes on, grains, textiles, certain labor, cattle, and other commodities. Same as being done today. Can you tell me what's being done different today? And we're going to go over it, and you'll see the comparisons. But let's go ahead.
The amount of taxes owed was often linked to agriculture, with a certain percentage of a field's harvest earmarked for state-run granaries or administrative storage centers. Interestingly, taxes were adjusted for field productivity, a parallel to modern income tax brackets with different categories established based on the amount of wealth incurred.
Right, it's the same way. If you broke, you pay this many taxes. If you rich, you pay this much taxes. Go ahead.
Generally, a field with a more successful harvest would be taxed at a higher percentage.
Yeah, because if he's more successful and he's making more money, we're going to tax you more. So it's the same as today. You got a business, and the business is very profitable. They come in for your taxes. The difference between us, our nation, and the other nations, they have a better, Israel, our people are starting to wake up now on that level, but they have a better understanding on how to thwart that, to not pay those taxes. So they have they loopholes where you don't have to pay taxes. For the most part, the rich know how to get out of it, but the poor are the ones that's being taxed. And you're going to see in what way they're being taxed. It's just we're overly being taxed. Mm-hmm. And where did they get this from? Egypt. Go ahead and read. Go ahead and just read the highlighted areas right now.
Fields were taxed in different ways, and the rate was dependent on the individual field productivity and the fertility and quality of the soil, says Moreno Garcia. But the government was determining the base tax rate dependent on the height of the Nile.
So they based their taxes on the height of the Nile, right? And you might be like, well, why would they do that? Because the Nile was their full source of water for a culture that was built their financing mostly on agriculture. Mm-hmm. So it was an agricultural society as to ours was at the time, but they taxed you on different grains that you grew, different fruits and vegetables that you grew, and it depended on how was the land or the soil. If you had a great land and great soil, you paid more taxes. But if your land was a little more rocky, a little more drier, you paid less taxes. But ultimately, you was paying those taxes. Go ahead.
In addition to determining tax rates and types of taxes, the ancient Egyptians developed multiple methods of tax collection.
See that? And the same here with America. We got H&R Block, to name a few. I can't name all of them.
Liberty Tax Services.
Liberty Tax Services. The same way. It's different, but it's the same. It's run different. The technology is a little different now. So the foundational principles are still the same. The third parties that they have set up are still the same, collecting the taxes, just like Egypt. But they're just different names. And it's operated a little differently because of technology. But go ahead. You can see the comparisons. But go ahead.
During the Old Kingdom, which spanned roughly 2649 to 2130 BCE, the crown taxed communities, collectively ordering estate owners to hand over goods contributed by the retainers. Around this time, the Egyptians pioneered the concept of a central government headed by the pharaoh.
So look what they did. The crown tax communities collectively ordering estate owners to hand over goods contributed by their retainers. So we talking about, like in today, what would be kind of similar is you have your property, right? I'm an estate owner. I pass away, and now the government got their hands on it, and before you can get it, you got to pay up some money, right? Before you can get that. What do they call that? Not an estate fee.
Property tax?
Yeah, you got the probate court.
Probate court, okay.
They have usually like 24 to 30-something% on taxes before you can get your property. So if you have the property and you need to give up the money, a lot of times they're selling your property and then getting about 30% of what is yours, and they're keeping that for whatever they need for the state purposes, new roads, new programs. You know the whole spiel. You know, we've been living here for the last how many years? So it's no different than what Egypt was doing.
Can I add something, Priest?
Go right ahead.
It just came to mind, and it's something that's widespread now, or I'll say in Georgia, is that thing with eminent domain. It's kind of like that, too.
Oh, right.
You know, they're building these big data centers, and they just taking people's home. They're just like, we need it.
Yeah.
And that's a form of tax. You know, they just take their home. There's no say. And they ain't even paying them or giving any money of what their home is valued at or what it's worth.
No.
You know, they're giving them pennies on a dollar, if anything.
Yeah, this whole system is set up, right? Although it's mimicking Egypt, it's wicked. And we're going to show you that it is wicked. It's wicked, man. How do you have somebody buy a home, right? The home is, let's say, the starting point is $120,000. And then this guy or this woman spends 15 to 30 years trying to pay off this house, and then they default on it. So you already got that money probably 2 or 3 times over after spending it for 15 years, and you take that same house and you put a contract under that same house. Ain't nothing changed in that house. Now the house is worth $350,000, and now you got somebody else that a house was already paid off, paying 3 times as much for a 30-year loan. And this house could have been bought and sold and paid for like maybe 6 times over the last 30 years, which they done got this money off this house. Wickedness. That's evil. And then you got some of these folks selling the same house. There's no work done on it, and you selling it for 4 times the value it was 10 years ago. Wickedness. Evil. The house is not even in tip-top shape, and you selling it for $400,000? Evil. Pure evil. And where did they get it from? They got all of this stuff from Egypt. Let's go ahead.
Around the same time, the Egyptians pioneered the concept of a central government headed by the pharaoh, with smaller provinces known as nomes under the administration of local authorities. To ensure that the
And these gnomes are like tax collection centers where you go and you pay your taxes or you file for your taxes. Go ahead.
to ensure that the nomarchs, provincial governors, were actually reporting their district's wealth, Old Kingdom pharaohs conducted an annual or biannual tour of the kingdom.
So they couldn't be trusted because they was probably skimming from the top.
Correct.
So they created something where the big boys come in, like the Federal Reserves and themselves, and come and do an audit or come and do these things themselves to make sure that they got the money that they deserve to get or the money that they was trying to get. But go ahead.
Known as Shemusu Hor, or following of Horus, the visits allowed the ruler to collect taxes directly instead of trusting a third-party tax
So
collector.
they came, when the Pharaoh came, him and his team came collecting those taxes directly. And believe me, they were serious about paying those taxes as they are today. You default on your taxes, they want to throw you in prison. If you defaulted on your taxes, I know the Egyptians, it might be in the reading here somewhere, I know I had read it here, they would chop your nose off or exile you for not paying taxes. Imagine that. Chopping your nose off? Man, barbaric.
Yeah.
And they were unjust because it tells you they were unjust with their taxes too, overpaying people. Then they had centers where you can go and say, hey, I'm protesting against, what the adjuster came and valued my house at. He put the value too high and now my taxes is too high. So they had centers where you can go in and complain and what's the word I want to look for? You can fight against it. It's another word I'm looking for, but
Appeal
you can
it?
appeal it. There
Yeah.
you go. There you go. You can appeal it. But let's go ahead and read on.
Or depending on the honesty of local authorities. Despite the fact that their society revolved around unwavering faith in the Pharaoh, who was seen as the mediator between mankind and the divine, the ancient Egyptians were overly enthusiastic about taxes.
Yeah, overly enthusiastic about taxes. Who does that sound like? You're about to see in a minute. We're about to read it. Overly enthusiastic about taxes. Go ahead.
Much like today, citizens publicly protested the practice.
And they did it in Egypt. Go ahead.
Some complaints centered on unfair tax assessments. As a new kingdom priest wrote in a letter, you shall go with the standard bearer, Pathamani, and report to the vizier concerning the excessive silver that the retainer Ai tells me to give, for it is not my due tax at all.
Right. So you can go and you can appeal whatever the individual set your house or taxes at. But go ahead.
Today's tax codes are extensive and ever-changing.
Right. Extensive and ever-changing, right? So when they say that the Egyptians were overly enthusiastic about taxes, let's read.
But many of the basic tax types governments depend on, including sales tax, excise tax, and property taxes, death tax, luxury tax,
have
been around since early civilization. Federal income
tax,
the estate tax.
Look at all these taxes. State, exercise, property, death, luxury, estate, gift, Social Security, state sales taxes. They tax us on everything. Yeah, before and after. And we sat down today, the priesthood, and I didn't actually get the document, but you can look it up yourself, right? They're taxing us about 50% of our wages. When it's all said and done, you might make $500, but ultimately you only got $250 to spend because of all the taxes. If they took away all those taxes, we would have a lot more money to live and to breathe and do things. So this is unjust.
And we ain't even talking about inflation.
No, we ain't even talking about inflation. So let's go ahead in the law, AP Ibrin, and let's see where this was unlawful. Call the scripture, and we can go ahead and move forward.
Leviticus 25, verse 35. And if thy brother be waxen poor, and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger, or a sojourner, that he may live with thee.
Go ahead. So it's telling you if you got a brother that's poor and he's fallen in decay, right? And then thou shalt relieve him. So if you need to help him, go ahead and help him. Go ahead and give him a little bit of money. Do whatever it is you need to do to help your brother. Go ahead.
Continuing in verse 36. Take thou no usury of him.
Take no usury of him. Usury is a tax, right? A tax that is given that is unjust. If I borrow $20 from you and I got to pay you $80 back in return, that's usury. That is like a tax. And this is what the Egyptians were known for. Usury to the 10th power. So it is evil to use usury. Go ahead.
Or increase, but fear the Most High, that thy brother may live with thee.
Right. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury, nor lend him thy victuals, or increase.
Right. So, you don't want to give him any victuals for increase. I'm giving you this food, but you got to give me back like $25. Mm-hmm. And the food might be only worth $10. It's usury. The Most High said it's wicked. We are not to do it. So, now, let me hit you with another scripture. Go ahead and, Ibron, go ahead and read Exodus 30, 14 and 15.
Everyone that passeth
so
among
the Most
them.
High, right, he covers all grounds, right? And everything that he does, when you really look into it and you understand the practice of it, and you've actually practiced it yourself, you see that it's righteous, 100%. And you can see how the people rejoice when righteous men are in rulership. So let's read this.
Everyone that passeth among them that are numbered, from 20 years old and above, shall give an offering unto the Most High.
So now we have something that you might think that is a tax, right? But it's not really a tax. It's something that was given to help out the priesthood. So the Most High is saying, I'm going to set this standard that anybody from 20 years and older, everybody has to give some kind of form of money to help out the priesthood, to help out the movement. But look at what's been done. Go ahead.
The rich shall give more, and the
Read
poor.
that again.
The rich shall not give more.
The rich shall not give more. Go ahead.
And the poor shall not give less.
And the poor shall not give less. Go ahead.
Than half a shekel.
So that means whether you were poor or whether you was rich, you paid a half a shekel. Where's the righteousness in that, right? Because you got all of this land, right? And nobody's going to come and say, well, you got all this land, give me 60 shekels, right? And because you poor, we're going to look out for you, give me a half a shekel. The Most High said, nah, it's one price for the poor and one price for the rich. And it was set at a balance where someone poor can afford it and someone rich can afford it without complaint. So when you guys come, and I'm going to bring this up again because I've heard it enough time when you come. No, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that.
I knew you was going.
But go ahead and finish that up. Did you finish the 15th verse? Go ahead and read the 15th verse.
Continuing in verse 15. When they give an offering unto the Most High to make an atonement for your souls.
Read that again from the top. Salakia.
The rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than half a shekel, when they give an offering unto the Most High, and to make an atonement for your souls.
So it was balanced. It was even. It was right. It was just. It was set at a price where both the rich and the poor can be able to afford it. It wasn't too much for the poor, and it wasn't charged too much for the rich. And also because somebody is poor, you're not showing favoritism to them because you're charging them less. So there's the balance right there. Okay? So, in seeing that, let's move on to the book of Jasher, where we can actually see the stories about their taxes, but also the funerals. We're going to hit the funerals. Where did funerals come from? Well, it comes from the time of Adam, right? Because we know that Adam was buried. He, according to the scriptures, was the first funeral that took place. But when did they start charging to bury the dead? Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. And guess who started that? the Egyptians. So we're going to go through that and go through the comparisons here today and then move on. So, Kahan Rashim, go ahead.
Jasher, chapter 14, beginning in verse 1. In those days, there was in the land of Shinar.
So, pay close attention, right? If you're there, you're out and you're watching, pay close attention what you're reading here. Number one, it's the book of Jasher. It's not in the Bible. You know what I mean? That would be a negative for most people, but here's the positive. Joshua, in the book of Joshua, it tells you that if you need to know any details about the word of the Most High and the details about what was going on, go to the book of Jasher. So the good news is we're going to the book of Jasher to give you more information about something that took place in Egypt that Genesis doesn't record. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means that Genesis didn't give the details as some of the other books. So we're in Jasher. Go ahead.
Verse 1. In those days there was in the land of Shinar a wise man who had understanding and all wisdom, and that of a beautiful appearance, but he was poor and indignant. His name was Richion, and he was hard set to support himself.
So he was wise, he had understanding, and more than likely he was wise and full of understanding in the ways of, just how to move in that society at that particular time. I'm not going to say that this guy was righteous, because he wasn't. But he had wisdom on how to move in his kingdom. He had wisdom on how to move in the world. But he was broke. He was a nice looking guy, but he ain't had no money. Okay? So this guy was named Rachion. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And he resolved to go to Egypt, to Osiris, the son of Anam, the king of Egypt, to show the king his wisdom, for perhaps he might find grace in his sight, to raise him up and give him maintenance. And Richion did so.
So Richion is going to Egypt to turn up, but to get his bag up too. Like a lot of people when they leave their country to come to America to get money, to become wealthy, to become famous, to become rich. This is the same story. His name is Rachion, and he went to Egypt to get rich. Just like we come to America from other countries to get rich and then bring that money back home to our family members back home. But let's go.
Verse 3. And when Rachion came to Egypt, he asked the inhabitants of Egypt concerning the king. And the inhabitants of Egypt told him the custom of the king of Egypt. For it was then the custom of the king of Egypt that he went from his royal palace and was seen abroad only one day in the year.
The king was. Go ahead.
And after that, the king will return to his palace to remain there. And on the day when the king went forth, he passed judgment in the land, and everyone having a suit came before the king that day to obtain his request.
So this was a big day, almost like a holiday, because the king came in and the king did certain things. He collected certain things. He saw certain things, and he attended to certain things. And if you had anything that you wanted to ask of or to be done, this was the day to come and do it. Go ahead.
Verse 5. And when Rachion heard of the custom in Egypt, and that he could not come into the presence of the king, he grieved greatly and was very sorrowful. And Rachion considered with himself what he should do in the town until the king made his appearance, and how he might maintain himself there. And he rose up in the morning and walked about, and met in his way those who sold vegetables and various sorts of seed.
So we're going to jump down to the 13th verse. So basically what's going on is this guy is trying to find a way to hustle to make money, right? And do certain things until the king comes to present himself to the king, because he might have been ready to ask him a certain thing or to do a certain thing. But nonetheless, this is what he's doing. So when he went to go do his stand, the people there made fun of him. They ridiculed him. So he's like, okay, I got to go to plan B, the 13th verse.
And he rose up in the morning and acted ingeniously, and went and hired 30 strong men of the rabble, carrying their war instruments in their hands. And he led them to the top of the Egyptian sepulchre, and he placed them there. And he commanded them, saying, Thus saith the king, strengthen yourselves and be valiant men. and let no man be buried here until 200 pieces of silver be given, and then he may be buried.
So he got these 30 mighty men together and said, this is what the Pharaoh said. Now, I want to ask a question. Did he see the Pharaoh yet?
No.
No, he was only able to see him one. So it's showing you his wisdom. So he hired these men, and he said, if anybody come in this cemetery to bury somebody, you tell them they got to give up, 200 pieces of silver before they can bury them. So this is what he devised. And if you got 30 strong, mighty men, you giving up that money if you want to bury somebody. So we're going to see what happens. Go ahead.
Continuing in verse 14. And those men did according to the order of Rachion to the people of Egypt the whole of that year. And in 8 months' time, Rachion and his men gathered great riches of silver and gold.
In 8 months' time, this guy became a multi-millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Using his wisdom. You know, he wasn't Egyptian for all intents and purposes. He wasn't from there. But he came there and he made a killing. Go ahead.
Verse 15. Continuing in verse 15. And in 8 months' time, Rachion and his men gathered great riches of silver and gold. And Rachion took a great quantity of horses and other animals, and he hired more men, and he gave them horses, and they remained with him.
So he took the money and he reinvested it. Something our people don't know nothing about, but we need to start educating ourselves on that. So he took that and he reinvested it to cause his business to grow. Go ahead.
Verse 17. And the king went forth on the appointed day, and all the Egyptians came before him and cried unto him, saying, May the king live forever. What is this thing that thou doest in a town to thy servants, not to suffer a dead body to be buried until so much silver and gold be given? Was there ever the like unto this done in the whole earth? From the days of former kings, yea, even from the days of Adam.
So they know that even from the days of Adam, even up until the day that guy came there, Rachion, nobody was paying for funerals. But in Egypt, this is where all that wickedness is going on at. They started charging for funerals. And it shows you, even here, it shows you that funeral business is a big business. Death is a big business. And he was making his money. But let's go.
Continuing in verse 18. Unto this day, that the dead should not be buried only for a set price.
So they asking the king, why did you do this to us? But you don't like us? Now you're paying taxes for burying the dead? Go ahead.
Verse 19. We know it to be the custom of the kings to take a yearly tax from the living.
See that? This is where, again, the evidence of Egypt taking a yearly tax. But it wasn't just one tax. It was several taxes that they taxed on the people, and they constantly taxed the people unjustly. But go ahead.
But thou dost not only do this, but from the dead also thou exactest a tax day by day.
Right. And now you're taxing us, or taxing the dead day by day. Go ahead.
Now, O king.
Jump to 23.
Verse 23. And they told him all the works of Rachion and his men. And the king's anger was aroused, and he ordered Rachion and his men to be brought before him.
Now, watch this, what happens, and then it's going to show you how wicked this society is. King is mad right now. He's upset. And he's upset because he's like, this guy is making all this money, and you ain't told me? And you, what? I got to see this guy right now. Go ahead.
Verse 24. And Rachion took about 1,000 children, sons and daughters, and clothed them in silk and embroidery. And he set them upon horses and sent them to the king by means of his men. And he also took a great quantity of silver and gold and precious stones and a strong and beautiful horse as a present for the king.
So look what he did. He went ahead and made this decision, said the king said that you had to do this, got all this money, and now he's bringing the king a treasure trove of money.
Yeah.
Let's see how happy the king gets after he realizes that he's getting a piece of the dream. But go ahead.
With which he came before the king and bowed down to the earth before him.
Using his wisdom. He knew he didn't have that permission. But he did it anyway, and now he's presenting himself, the riches, the children, the horses, the gold, the silver, to the king. King, this is yours. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
And the king and his servants and all the inhabitants of Egypt wondered at the work of Rachion, and they saw his riches and the present that he had brought to the king. Verse 25. And it greatly pleased the king, and he wondered at it.
And I can see why. I never thought of that. And then I'm hearing it, and I'm thinking, this guy got all the money, and you bought it to me? I didn't even ask. So you know he wondered. He was like, yo, I'm all right with that. And I'm like, man, that was all your idea? Rachion. Let's go.
And when Rachion sat before him, the king asked him concerning all his works. And Rachion spoke all his words wisely before the king, his servants, and all the inhabitants of Egypt. And when the king heard the words of Rachion and his wisdom, Rachion found grace in his sight. And he met with grace and kindness from all the servants of the king and from all the inhabitants of Egypt.
And because the king was happy with it, all the servants and all the inhabitants was happy with it. At first, they was all upset. I'd still be upset. Yeah. Why I got to pay this money for a funeral? But the king said it. Let's make it happen. And we just read earlier where the king was almost in the position of being a god. You know, so they respected him in that aspect. Even though they may not have liked the tax, the king said it was good and it was supposed to be implemented. Let's just go ahead and deal with it. But go ahead. Call the verse.
Continuing in the latter part of verse 26. On account of his wisdom and excellent speeches, and from that time they loved him exceedingly.
They loved him exceedingly. Go ahead.
Verse 27. And the king answered and said unto Rachion, thy name shall no more be called Rachion, but Pharaoh.
Look at that. Look at that. But Pharaoh. Go ahead.
Shall be thy name, since thou did exact a tax from the dead, and he called his name Pharaoh.
So this is the first case where we seeing that this is, now I'm not sure, and I didn't even check on that, but I'm not sure if this was the first time they called somebody Pharaoh, or they called him Pharaoh because of his position now that he had and what he has done for Egypt. But nonetheless, look at the prestige that he has come to from the time he came to Egypt and now, and what he's created. So all this was done and shown to show you that just like in Egypt, they were paying to bury the dead. Where do you think that all society, including what we're talking about today, America, gets that from? From Egypt. From Egypt. But go ahead.
That was it for that, priest.
All right. So from there, let's get Ibron, Jasher, chapter 70. So now we know that came from the dead. I mean, from Egypt. Burying of the dead came from Egypt. We see the same practices here. And I think the average death for burial, as a matter of fact, I think, which he did go into it last week, Kahan Yaradan. He went over burials and how expensive it can be, anywhere from 7 to 10, and maybe in some cases $15,000 for a funeral. And I think the least case was cremation, and I think I read it was like $2,500 for a cremation. So nonetheless, you know, this is where all of that comes from. So as it was in Egypt, so is it here in America. This is why this place is spiritually called Egypt as well as Sodom. But go ahead, Ibron, and go ahead and read Jasher. So from here, we're going into the harsh captivity of Israel. What happened to Israel, how they were treated, and similar to how we're being treated here today in Egypt. So let's go ahead and read that. And when you get it, just go ahead and start reading.
Jasher, verse 1. And in the 3rd year of the birth of Moses.
And that's Jasher 70, chapter 70, verse 1. Go ahead.
And in the 3rd year from the birth of Moses, Pharaoh was sitting at a banquet, when APPAREL, the queen, was sitting at his right.
And again, where are we now? In the book of Jasher, giving a piece of a story that the Bible doesn't give. Does it mean that the story in the Bible is not true? No, it just left out this particular detail. And then if you go to Jubilees, you'll see out some details that was not added in Jasher. So when you put them all together, you get a complete story about what happened in Genesis. So let's go ahead and read the account or the details of what happened during Pharaoh and the children of Israel with Moses. Go ahead.
Continuing in Jasher 70, verse 1. Pharaoh was sitting at a banquet, when APPAREL, the queen, was sitting at his right, and Bethia at his left. And the lad Moses was lying upon her bosom, and Balam, the son of Beor, with his 2 sons, and all the princes of the kingdom were sitting at the table in the king's presence.
So now we have here. The story of Balam, right? The House of Wisdom goes over Balam many times, right? Showing you where witchcraft comes from. And Khan Rashim will be definitely going over a piece of that today. So we're seeing the first story about Balam right here at the birth of Moses. But go ahead. So showing you that Balam was around even before the time of Moses, doing work for these kings and these rulerships and these kingdoms. Let's go ahead and read.
Jasher 70, verse 2. And the lad stretched forth his hand upon the king's head, and took the crown from the king's head.
The lad that is talking about is Moses. So Moses stretched forth his hand and put it upon the king's head. Go ahead.
Continuing in verse 2. And took the crown from the king's head and placed it on his own head. And when the king and the princes saw the work which the boy had done, the king had princes was terrified, and one man to his neighbor expressed astonishment.
Yeah, because then they were a little more spiritual than we are now. Right? So when they saw stuff like that, it meant something serious. So when they saw that Moses took the crown off of the king's head as a young child and put it on his head, they were worried. The king wasn't so worried, but these magi's, these witches, were worried. Go ahead, call the verse, and let's move on.
Jasher 70, verse 4. And the king said unto the princes, who were before him at table,
Oh, man.
what speak you, and what say you, O you princes, in this matter, and what is to be the judgment against the boy on account of this act? And Balam, the son of Beor, the magician, answered before the king and princes.
I'll call the verse.
Jasher 70, verse 5.
Go ahead.
And Balam, the son of Beor, the magician, answered before the king and princes and said, remember now, O my lord and king, the dream which thou didst dream many days since, and that which thy servant interpreted unto thee. Now therefore this is a child from the Hebrew children, in whom is the spirit of the Most High. And let not my lord the king imagine that this youngster did this thing without knowledge.
Yeah, so they already know, right? That, listen, this young man is from the stock of the Hebrews. Don't take lightly what just happened. These Hebrews are incredible people. You know what I mean? So let us be aware. Don't take this as a joke. These are the children of the Most High. Go ahead.
Continuing in verse 7. For he is a Hebrew boy, and wisdom and understandings are with him.
Even as a young child. Go ahead.
Although he is yet a child, and with wisdom he has done this, and chosen unto himself the kingdom of Egypt.
So they know, the Egyptians knew and know how wise and how much wisdom we had then. Our wisdom, even then, even among our children, surpassed the wisdom of these other nations. And they know. They know this. This is why the fear of us coming back into our own, the priesthood coming back together, the nation coming back together, and us ruling, they're terrified of it. They do not want it because they know what comes attached to the children of Israel who are in righteousness. You cannot stop them. Go ahead and read. Call the verse and read.
Jasher 70, verse 8. For this is the manner of all the Hebrews, to deceive kings and their nobles, to do all these things cunningly, in order to make the kings of the earth and their men tremble.
Right. Go ahead.
Surely thou knowest that Abraham, their father, acted thus, who deceived the army of Nimrod, king of Babel, and Abimelech, king of Gerar, and that he possessed himself of the land of the children of Heth and all the kingdoms of Canaan.
Listen, when you start reading this, right, you realize it should be instinctively, and sometimes it's not. You start to realize that these other nations know us. And I don't care what they tell you, what they show you, they know who we are. They're not going to tell you. This is why we give thanks to the Heavenly Father for revealing this thing to us. You know, and for me, I go back to 1 West. You know, Masha, Arya, Yaquab, and the rest of the top 7, I take my hats off to them. I don't disrespect them brothers in any way, because what they were given of the Most High, and they created that foundation for brothers like myself, chief priests, and other men that are in Israel today. They created that foundation and we came in. It wasn't 100% on point, but as Chief Priest always says, the onus is upon us as the younger generation to correct those mistakes and move forward. Not to disrespect those men in any way. I know a lot is going on between the groups, calling names and slandering some of those brothers. We need to cut that out, you know, because if it wasn't for those top 7 at that particular time and moment in time, where would we be? All of them came together at that particular time to raise us up, and here we are today. And I thank the Most High for them brothers. I thank the Most High for waking us up. So call the verse and let's go.
Joshua 70, verse 10. And that he descended into Egypt and said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister, in order to mislead Egypt and her king. His son Isaac also did so when he went into Gerar and dwelt there, and his strength prevailed.
So ultimately he's going down into the story, right? And I'm going to cut this because of the time that we have. Rashim, he still has a piece to go through. So it's going into all the way to Joseph. These people are actually running down to the king, the history of the Hebrews, going all the way to Joseph, right? When they came in as 70 souls. So you cannot tell me these people don't know our history and know who we are. They do, and they don't want us to come back into our glory. Let me see here. Jump to 18. Verse 18.
Joshua 70, verse 18. Now therefore, my Lord King, behold, this child has risen up in their stead in Egypt, to do according to their deeds, and to trifle with every king, prince, and judge.
And they knew the prophecies. They knew the prophecies that was going on among the children of Israel. The children of Israel knew the prophecies as well, because it was told to Abraham. Abraham told Isaac. Isaac told Jacob. And Jacob, before his death, when he was in Egypt, he informed his sons exactly when they was coming out of Egypt, what they would be doing. So they know, and they knew. So go ahead and call the verse.
Joshua 70, verse 19.
Go ahead.
If it please the king, let us know, spill his blood upon the ground.
Right. They was talking about killing Moses. But not only that of Moses, but also the children of Israel at that same time too. Go ahead.
Lest he grow up and take away the government from thy land, and the hope of Egypt perish after he shall have reigned.
And they were smart in doing so, but it was already too late. You know why? Because Moses was born, he was saved alive, and the king loved him and took him in his own household. So it was already too late. The king was not going to kill Moses. The Most High set it up that way. That's why the king raised Moses in his household. So death wasn't coming upon Moses, but it was given as an advice by the Magi's to kill off Moses, but also the children of Israel. Before they found out about Moses, it was sent for them to kill off the children of Israel, cause the children of Israel, their women, to abort their babies or to kill their babies after they were born. So they did all of this. And then ultimately when they saw that Moses was that special seed, they said, kill him as well. Go ahead.
Continuing in Joshua 70, verse 20. And Balam said to the king, let us moreover call for all the judges of Egypt and the wise men thereof, and let us know if the judgment of death is due to this boy, as thou didst say, and then he will slay him. And Pharaoh said,
from there, jump to 25. So they calling all the Magi's together to see what should we do? Should we kill Moses? Should we leave him alive? 25.
If it please the king, let the king send for men who shall bring before him an onyx stone and a coal of fire, and place them before the child. And if the child shall stretch forth his hand and take the onyx stone, then shall we know that with wisdom has the youth done all that he has done, and we must slay him.
So we're going to set before this child an onyx stone, a beautiful onyx stone, or hot coals before this child. And if he choose the onyx stone, we know he did it purposely. And if he choose the coal, it was done out of ignorance. Go ahead.
But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, then shall we know that it was not with knowledge, that he did his thing, and he shall live.
29.
And they placed the boy before them, and the lad endeavored to stretch forth his hand to the onyx stone.
So he wanted to stretch forth his hand and put it towards the onyx stone, but what happened?
But the angel of the Most High took his hand and placed it upon the coal, and the coal became extinguished in his hand. And he lifted it upon and put it into his mouth, and burned part of his lips and part of his tongue. And he became heavy in mouth and tongue. So
this is why you hear in Genesis why he says, I have a speech impediment. I don't know how to speak. I can't talk well. And the Most High is like, you don't think you don't know how to talk?
Right.
I got your brother Aaron to do the talking for you. So when you look back at why that happened, this is the reasoning why. Right? So from there, go to 34.
Continuing in verse 34. And he daily went forth and came into the land of Goshen.
So Moses, being a young man, was still coming into the land of Goshen where he saw his people. They show you in television that he didn't know who his people was until he got a grown old man. And that, again, is a lie. He knew who his mother was because his mother nursed him all the way up. He knew who his people were because he was riding around, and here it tells you the same thing. Moses knew who they were. The Bible tells you that in the same way. No different. But go ahead, call the verse, and let's go ahead.
Continuing in verse 34.
Start at the beginning.
And he daily went forth and came into the land of Goshen, where his brethren, the children of Israel, were. And Moses saw them daily in shortness of breath and hard labor. So
they were participating in hard labor. They were constantly working day after day. And in fact, for the sake of time, I'm going to give some talking points, and then we're going to move on. So they're working day by day, putting in this hard labor. They were working 7 days a week. And Moses petitioned that Pharaoh give them a day off. And Pharaoh, because he loved Moses, he hearkened unto Moses, and he gave them 6 days to work. But on the Shabbat, the Sabbath, he gave them that 1 day to rest. He gave it to them off. But go ahead. As a matter of fact, jump to 41.
Joshua 70, verse 41. And the day arrived when Moses went into Goshen to see his brethren, that he saw the children of Israel in their burdens and hard labor. And Moses was grieved on their account.
44.
And Moses said unto Pharaoh, let there be given unto thy servants, the children of Israel, who are in Goshen, 1 day to rest therein from their labor.
So that's where Moses went ahead and asked them for that rest, and they got the rest. Rashim, if you can go to Jasher 71, 1 through 5. So we see here in Egypt, Salakia, where they gave them hard labor. And how was that in comparison here to America? Well, look at what happened here in slavery. Was that not hard labor? Of course. And ultimately, they said they freed us, but we wasn't really free. They actually took us off the plantation and put us in the factories, a modern-day plantation. And then they had us working at first 12 hours a day, I think like 6 days a week.
Right.
And then Ford came along and revolutionized the employment aspect of it, because he said, listen, you guys are working your employees too much. So we go into that 40 hours a week and 5 days a week. And actually Ford came in and paid them more. I think they was getting paid like anywhere from $1 to $2 an hour, and Ford came in and started paying them $3 to $4 an hour. And then now they only had the 40-hour work week. But even today, you see that we're so occupied. And I saw a document a few weeks ago where they was showing where this whole setup was by design to get you to work so you don't have enough time to do anything. You don't have enough time to create a business. You don't have enough time to do anything to free yourself from this particular slavery that they had. And you don't have enough time to worship the Heavenly Father. If you do, it's that quick fix, right? You go Sunday, you in there 2 hours, you scream, praise the Lord, I'm covered in the blood, and I'm good to go. And it's more work that needs to be done than that. But if you have a 8-hour work week, a work day, 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, some of us are working 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day. Listen, when you come home off of work, we ain't talking about the time that you got to put in for the traffic, because some of us are an hour, 2 hours in traffic. So you add that time. When you add up the time that you got to get up to get ready for work, that ain't your time. You getting up to go to work for your modern-day slave owner. So just as it was difficult and hard then, it is for us today, and it's worse today because they're putting things in the food to make you flaccid, to make you weak, to make you more tired, that when you go to work, you thugging it out, but when you come home, I can't do nothing else.
Right.
I'm going home to go to bed. And for those of us, right, that are grinding it out, and they got this slogan where I'll sleep when I die, a lot of you that chasing that money and chasing that bag, look at it. Do your own research. Most of you, or a lot of you, end up sick because you're not sleeping right, you're not eating right, you end up with some kind of degenerative disease or some kind of blood disorder, or a place where you're having an autoimmune deficiency because you're living this lifestyle that is not normal. All of this that we're doing is abnormal. There's nothing normal about getting up and going to work 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours a day, and then coming home. You ain't got no time for your family. You might have 2 hours, and then the rest got to be for sleep and going back to this man's job. So the labor and the difficulty of dealing with it and the stress of it is no different than it was then. It's the same. It's troubling for us as it was for them. But go ahead and read. Call where you at and go ahead and read. Rashim?
Yeah. Jasher, chapter 71 and verse 1. And when Moses was 18 years old, he desired to see his father and mother, and he went to them in Goshen. And when Moses had come near to Goshen, he came to the place where the children of Israel were engaged in work. And he observed their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian smiting one of his Hebrew brethren. And when the man who was beaten saw Moses, he ran to him for help. For the man Moses was greatly respected in his house of Pharaoh. And he said to him, My Lord, attend to me. This Egyptian came to my house in the night, bound me, and came to my wife in my presence, and now he seeks to take my life away. And when Moses heard this wicked thing, his anger was kindled against the Egyptian, and he turned this way and the other. And when he saw there was no man there, he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
Which verse you in?
Verse 3. Jasher 71 and 3.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay.
But ultimately, this is the story of when Moses actually flees. So for time's sake, let's jump to the 11th verse.
Verse 11. And the angel of the Most High took hold of the right hand of Moses and brought him forth from Egypt and placed him from without the borders of Egypt, a distance of 40 days'
So
journey.
the Most High had the angels take Moses and get him out, give him a 40-day head start, so that they wouldn't catch up with him and do what they needed to do or wanted to do with Moses. Go ahead, call the verse.
Verse 12. And Aaron his brother alone remained in the land of Egypt, and he prophesied to the children of Israel, saying, Thus saith the Most High Yahweh of your ancestors, throw away each man the abomination of his eyes.
And this is what we're doing today, right? This is the comparison. They were in Egypt. They were in captivity. They served that hard bondage. And then here they had a Savior come because the Most High was getting ready to free them out of that bondage. You know, hence what we read in Jeremiah 23, that the story about Egypt, although it was talked about in these last days, was getting ready to happen to the children of Israel, is going to be 10 times greater than the story of Egypt. So right before Moses came to deliver them out of Egypt, it was told to them to throw away your abominations of each man's eyes. What is your abominations? Well, we're going to bring it to today, right? Christmas is an abomination. Throw it away. Thanksgiving is an abomination. Throw it away. Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving. Any more you got to name? Throw it away. Throw it away. The Most High is getting ready to deliver us. Just like during the time of Aaron, he was warning the people, Abba's getting ready to come deliver us. You got to get your house in order. This is what this series is about, getting your house in order. And before they left, just like in Egypt, today here, before we leave, we are warning you, just like Aaron warned our forefathers, get your house in order. Read 13 again.
Thus saith the Most High Yahweh of your ancestors, throw away each man the abomination of his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Egypt. And the children of Israel rebelled and would not hearken to Aaron at that time.
What did they do? They rebelled. We telling people to get their house in order, and what are they doing? You rebel. When you say sacrifice is done away with, we don't know what y'all talking about, you're rebelling. When you saying that the true 10 commandments is in Exodus 20, even after we showed you was in Exodus 34, you're rebelling. When we tell you got to keep the high holy days based upon the Enochian calendar because we read the book of Enoch, you say we don't read the book of Enoch, you going off, Ak. You're in rebellion. And it's not going to go well for you. And I'm not saying that to throw any salt. I'm saying that because aren't you tired of getting your behind whooped by the Most High? I'm tired. I don't want to see the belt anymore. Are you not tired? So we're warning you, just like Aaron did when they were in Egypt, to get your house in order, and they rebelled. You rebel as well. You rebel. Let's go ahead and read that. Finish that up.
Verse 16. In those days, the hand of Pharaoh continued to be severe against the children of Israel.
It continued to be severe. Go ahead.
And he crushed and oppressed them until the time when Abba Yahweh sent forth his word and took notice of them.
Right, and don't think that the Most High at this time has not taken notice of us. He has. If you haven't recognized that, then you should know that if it was prophesied that the priesthood would come in these last days, and the priesthood is here, the Most High has heard you. He has established the priesthood so that you could begin to clean yourself up. All the crying that you've done, all the whining that you have done, all the calling out that you have done, the Most High has heard you. The priesthood is here, but nobody respects the priesthood. The seventh covenant is here. It's ready to come into. Nobody wants to come into it. We're giving you the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High in a way that you've never seen it before, and you still won't come. So it's not going to go well for you. Finish that up.
And that was it, priest.
Okay. Bear with me for 1 minute. What was that, 71 you just read?
Con.
Bear with me for 1 minute. 70. All right, let me get Ibron, Jasher. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
We're moving over to the next section of
exactly.
whatever. All right. Let's see. Ibron, if you could hold, you may have to scroll down in the document there, and it says, what is a principle? Is highlighted on.
Got it.
All right. So
I got it.
Kahan Gabaria just went over some of the different points where we see Egypt in our culture today. And I'm going to go over some more points, but I want to focus on one thing. We said at the beginning the objective of this is so we can see the parallels of Egypt and those underlying principles operating in American society today. And so when we say principle, that means a thing. A lot of times we'll use words, and because we use them so often, we may forget, the essence of a word. We just kind of speak about certain things, but we lose sight of what the heart of that word means. So we're going to look into this as we go further into the class and cover some of the other points. And if you would, Ibron, let's read what principles are. So again, we're looking at the underlying principles in Egyptian society, correlating that to Western society. Well, let's look at what this word principle means, the etymology of it. If you would, Ibron, begin reading that. What is a principle?
The rules that guides behavior.
Now let's look at that. The rules that guides behavior, right? Let's pay attention to the word rules. We'll continue reading.
The rules that guides behaviors, actions, and or the operation of a system.
So actions and other operations of a system. The society we live in now is a system. We talk about in plenty of classes that this system that Hasatan has set up is a system set on trespasses. And so the things that we're going over now, taxation, usury, abortion, slavery, these things he's incorporated in his system so that we're in trespass, but it guides people's behavior. The people that are set to rule and govern now on earth, these are the things that they employ on us to keep us in trespass. But read that last part.
It acts as the core belief or standard. It defines how something works or what a person stands for.
All right. So let's take this a step further. We have rules. We have these governors and people that are implementing rules, actions to govern our behavior and the things that we do. If you would, I'll have you get it, Kahan Gabriel. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 10. So, as I mentioned, we want to look at the word rules because there has to be a person who sets rules, right? But we'll go ahead and read that when you have it, Kahan, starting with verse 10. Ephesians 6 and 10.
Ephesians 6 and 10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in Abba Yahweh and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Abba Yahweh that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil.
All right, so this is Paul speaking. So right now we've been in the beginning of the movie, but we're going to the end of the movie, and Paul was instructing the Gentile church and his brethren, the Israelites, right? So if you go back and watch the class on the, I believe it was the whole armor of God or the armory of God, I forget the title of it. He's saying put on the whole armor of God to combat these things that are trying to guide how you behave, your actions. But let's continue reading and see what he says in verse 12.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood.
So we talk many a times we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. I don't deal with someone directly, but who do we deal with?
But against principalities.
Principalities, right? Principalities. You see in the prefix of that word, principle. It's in there. So it's these principalities that are setting the rules, right? But we'll continue reading.
Against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
So we see here that the principles are the one that makes the rules. The principality are the ones that are trying to dictate, guide your behavior. We talk about it all the time. The war is up here.
Yeah.
It's a chamber of imagery. If he can get this, which he already has it if you're not under covenant, he says sin will rule you, guide you, make you do things that you don't want to do. And some of them make you do what you want to do because you're in covenant with Hasatan. You want to do his will and way. Yeah. So we want to look at this because this is very important to Egypt. And we're going to get more into that as we go along. So, again, you know, the reason why I want to bring that out is because when we think about Egypt, people have they have a certain view of Egypt. They're thinking about Moses and the Ten Commandments. They're thinking about King Tut. You know, they're thinking about the archaeologists, but Egypt doesn't begin there, right? And so we're gonna go on further. Let's see. So if we go back, if you look in the beginning in Genesis, and I'll just speak on it for the sake of time, it talks about Mitzrayim. We talk about the sons of Noah. We talk about the sons of Ham. One of the sons of Ham was Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, when you look in the scripture, that's Egypt. That's where Egypt begins. It starts with a progenitor, a father of that land, of that country, and we're going to see how this wickedness evolved over time. But let's take a look and see how the Most High looks at Egypt. We're talking about Egypt in a certain way. We're talking about it being in the height of its glory and its different things that it was doing. Although wicked, we're talking about some of these things. The Most High talked about Egypt in a particular way. And when you have it, Ibron, if you would, we'll get Exodus chapter 20 and start with verse 1.
And the Most High spoke all these words, saying, I am the Most High, the Abba, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
So the Most High talks about Egypt as being the house of bondage, right? The habitation or dwelling of slaves, right? At this time period we're talking about with Egypt, with with Ramses I and II, according to archaeologists and people who study Egyptology, they call this the New Kingdom period. And during this period, this was the height of Egypt's glory. So, you know, like, again, you have to use your chamber of imagery to think about these things. You know, we look at Egypt now, it's eroded, but it still looks glorious. You know, you see the Sphinx, you see these different buildings and the architecture that they made, the paintings and the inscriptions. Now take yourself back 3,000 years.
Yeah.
And how that looked when it was brand new.
Crispy,
right? And so this was part of the accolades of King Ramses, right? He had this splendor in Egypt. You know, you saw these opulent palatial estates, these different things that he built, and it was all built off the backs of us. And I'll give you a little clue. He talked about the slavery, and we're going to get into some of it. But the height of the Egyptian glory came off our backs, just like the height of American glory has coming off the Hebrews' backs. But we'll continue going. So here, if you would, Ibron, let's go to Exodus. Read Exodus chapter 20 and verse 3.
Exodus 20, verse 3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
So here, again, this was the house of bondage. This was the dwelling and the habitation of slaves. And just to also point out, when Joseph went into slavery, right, his brother sold him to Ishmaelite merchants.
Yeah.
They had a big slave trade going on in Egypt.
Even then,
that was their workforce. You know, virtually free labor to build this opulent society. Now look at America, right? We talk about how America was built up. It's the same thing. If you look at historians and people that study American history, there is a dramatic increase And all these institutions because of slavery, the wealth of slavery. Here's just to give a perfect point, we'll move on. So you know how everybody reveres the Ivy League schools, Harvard, Princeton, all these schools. There was a gentleman who wrote a book called Ebony and Ivy, and he studied the beginnings of these schools. And these schools were on the brink of collapse, almost destitute until they got involved in slave trade. Now look at Harvard. Now look at Princeton. These are the schools that teach the nation's elite. They're not trying to go work somewhere. These are the ones that are running Fortune 500 companies and international corporations and things. So this is what we're looking at. They profited and are known for their slavery. But let's go into the origins of their wickedness so we can get to the point that we're trying to get to. And if you would, Kahangabar, we'll get Jasher chapter 7 and start at verse 44. So we're going to look at the origin of Egypt's wickedness. And when you have it, we'll begin reading.
And Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them. And he prospered in all his battles, and his kingdom became very great.
All right, so to give some context here, a lot of you might be familiar with Nimrod. You know, when you read Jubilees, or earlier in Jasher, it talks about Nimrod being a mighty one. He was the first mighty one. And a lot of people might look at that as a positive thing. That's very negative. He was mighty because he ruled over his brethren, which was wickedness.
Yeah.
We wasn't supposed to have a sibling ruling over us. Abba Yahweh was the one that we were supposed to worship, and he ruled over us. But he ruled over them. And Nimrod did certain things to corrupt his brethren. He propagated certain things. So we'll continue reading our priest. We'll go to verse 45.
And all the nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him. And they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings. And he became their Lord and King.
Wrong. That was off right there. Their own brethren. They were bringing meat and drink offerings to Nimrod, right? So you know he was engaged in gross wickedness. But they all follow suit. But keep in mind, Mitzrayim was one of the nations that was involved with this, that was engaged in this wickedness. But we'll continue reading.
And they all dwelt with him in the city of Shinar. And Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel.
So here it says all the sons of Noah, including Mitzrayim, were under his power and counsel, under his influence. But we'll continue reading. Verse 46.
And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union, but Nimrod did not go into the ways of the Heavenly Father. He was more wicked than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days.
So we want to point out something too, just something that I almost missed. So the sons of Noah were all taught in the ways of the Most High. They were all taught the law, statutes, and commandments. And if you read early in Jasher, Nimrod was even walking in the way for a short while, but then he regressed, like all the other sons except for Shem, which the Most High ran that righteous lineage through, which we see now with Abraham, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. They studied the customs and the ways beyond the other side of the flood. So he taught them all of this. So he wasn't completely devoid of this knowledge, right? He understood these things, Mitzrayim did, as well as all the other brothers. So I think something's wrong. Testing. So we'll continue reading, priest. We'll go to verse 47.
And he made gods or deities of wood and stone and bowed down to them. And he rebelled against Abba Yahweh.
So this is the beginning. We're talking about the beginning. Spiritual fornication. This was the corruption of life. This is where it began. And Nimrod was explaining and teaching these things to his brethren. And we'll read on.
And he taught all his subjects and his people of the earth his wicked ways. And Mardan, his son, was more wicked than his father. And everyone that heard the acts of Mardan the son of Nimrod, would say concerning him, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness. Therefore it became a proverb in the whole earth, saying from the wicked goeth forth wickedness, and it was current in the words of men from that time to this.
All right, so we want to establish here the origin. This is the beginning. This is where it came, and it just evolved into more wickedness. So, Egypt, as you can see now, they're a polytheistic religion. They have over 1,500 deities. Well, where did that come from? Clearly, it came from this. It started at one thing, and it just built and grew. So we just want to point that out to show you that this is what we're dealing with. Now we're getting to a time where we're moving into Egypt and them growing in power. But there was one thing that got them in power. We said that every nation has something that they're identified by. Kahan Gabaria brought out in the beginning of the class, when someone is in Africa or another country and they look at America, they're like, they rich.
Yeah.
They're prospering. They're this and that. That's what they're known for. That's one of the, I don't know. I guess you could say that's a positive thing. But, for all intents and purposes, that's a positive thing, But when they looked at Egypt, it was the same way. But they were also known for something else. And what we're going to get into now was witchcraft, right? What makes a society dominant now? Technology, your military might, right? Egypt had that. They had a very strong army, right? They had knowledge and understanding, but it was the witchcraft that set them above any other nation at that time. And we're going to begin seeing how this wickedness grew in Egypt. If you would, Ibron, AP candidate Ibron, get Jasher chapter 67, and we'll start at verse 8. So just to bring you up to speed here, some context for the sake of time. We're kind of jumping in the middle, but this is a time where Joseph has passed away. Kahan Gabaria had brought it out before he passed. He explained the prophecies to all the heads of the household, to all the heads of the 12 tribes, and said that the Most High would deliver him out of this captivity, right? But between that time, when Joseph passed away, the scripture says they were under a new regime and they didn't know Joseph, right? So Egypt was involved in a war. And so this is where we pick up now, because there's a certain thing that takes place and there's a certain character that we're going to focus on. And a lot of times when we talked about it in the past, we looked at them at a later point, but we're now looking at the origin of witchcraft in Egypt, or how it increased. But when you have it, Ibron, let's begin to read.
And it was after the death of the king of Chittim that Balam, the son of Beor, fled from the land of Chittim, and he went and came to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
All right, so we hear Balaam. We've talked about this a lot, right? The dark arts of Balaam. He understood the mystery of iniquity. But let's take a look at Balaam here. We always look at him when, down the line, but let's look more into Balaam.
In his younger days.
And when you have it, Ibron, let's read Jasher 61, verse 7.
And after some time, Angeas hearkened to the words of Zepho, and consented to him to fight with the sons of Jacob in Egypt. And Angeas got all his people in order, a people numerous as the sand which is upon the seashore, and he formed his resolution to go to Egypt to battle. And amongst the servants of Angeas was a youth 15 years old, Balam, the son of Beor.
All right, let's stop there. So 15. And read on, Ibron. What does it say about Balam, this 15-year-old?
Continuing in verse 8. Balam, the son of Beor, was his name, and the youth was very wise and understood the art of witchcraft. He
understood the art of witchcraft, right? 15. Now, Angeas is a king. right? We talked about principalities, so he's at the highest places. He's not among the lay folk.
Yeah.
He's up in that, in a war room and in the decisions and all the things that the king does. He is right beside him. And so the king had called upon him because he knew the art of witchcraft. Now, where it says he was wise, obviously he wasn't wise in righteousness.
Right.
He was wise in the things of this world. He was wise in the satanic practices and the things that he were doing that were very effectual. People got to understand this, and we're going to see this more. The things that he was doing in witchcraft was effectual. It wasn't that he was just dabbling with chicken bones and chicken blood and all of that, and nothing was happening. When he came, things happened. Things were done. So let's read verse 9.
Yeah, and I want to say in resemblance, right? We know how Daniel was as a young man when we read the story of Susanna and how young he was and the wisdom that he had for righteousness. Well, you know that Hasatan has those young savants on the left-hand side who are savants at being wicked. Look at Genin.
Khan.
He used them from a youth to learn how to play music and eventually mislead the people with Genin. Well, what is he doing with Balam at 15 years old? And this Balam would go on to teach all the nations how to perform witchcraft against Israel. How to come before the Most High, the throne of the Most High, and accuse us before the Most High.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
You don't think that knowledge exists here in America? We're going to get more into it. Let's read verse 9.
Joshua 61, verse 9. And Angeas said unto Balam, conjure for us, I pray thee.
Let's stop there. He said, conjure for us. Like I said, Balaam's reputation preceded him. What he was doing was effectual. He's like, look, man, throw some of them bones down, whatever you do. Conjure up some things so we can win this battle.
Yeah.
Right? I pray thee so you can begin to implement this witchcraft that you know to turn the tide in this battle. So he was doing some things and they knew it was effectual. A king don't get somebody if you're not showing and proving.
Especially a 15-year-old.
At 15 years old, he's like, no. But we'll continue reading. We won't drive it in the hole. He knew some things and what he was doing was effectual. But we'll continue reading.
And Angeas said unto Balaam, conjure for us, I pray thee, with the witchcraft, that we may know who will prevail in this battle to which we are now proceeding. And Balaam ordered that they should bring him wax, and he made thereof the likeness of chariots and horsemen, representing the army of Angeas and the army of Egypt. And he put them in the cunningly prepared waters that he had for that purpose. And he took in his hand the balls of mortal trees, and he exercised his cunning, and he joined them over the water. And there appeared unto him in the water the resembling images of hosts of Angeas falling before the resembling images of Egyptians and the sons of Jacob.
So here we're talking about this witchcraft. So it's pretty much he had a cauldron full of water. He took these wax figurines and he took the boughs of myrtle trees and he did his little hoodoo voodoo and a movie started playing.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, look, Angus, you ain't going to come out of this one. So he was a seer. He can't change anything, but he could see.
Yeah.
And he said, nah, you're not going to win, especially going against the house of Jacob. But we'll read more into that. If you would, let's continue reading.
Joshua 67, verse 11. And Balaam told this to Angus, and Angus despaired and did not arm himself to go down to Egypt to battle, and he remained in his city.
Very wise king.
Yeah, for sure.
He said, nah, yeah. You know what you're talking about. We'll go ahead and back up. We ain't going to fight this one. We're going to sit it out. All right? So here we just want to show you the point of this Balaam character, because Balaam is the one that really amplified Egypt's station and position as a world power at that time. It was through witchcraft. other societies, they had nice things. They built nice buildings. They had nice architecture. But you talk about the witchcraft. And like I said, he was effectual. He told him, like, look, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was some other things saying, probably when Allah's like, look, don't you come over here and mess with because it was a prophecy in motion. So, but we'll go back, if you would, Ibram, we're going to go back to Jasher chapter 67 and pick it up in verse 9. So we want to establish Balaam. A lot of times when we look at Balaam, we're looking in the book of Numbers when he was with the king of the Moabites, right? With Balak, right? Another king, right? Another principal one who set rules to govern the actions and behavior of people in this wicked system. So that's what we're looking at, right? But we'll continue in verse 9. We'll pick it up there.
And Pharaoh received him with great honor, for he had heard of his wisdom, and he gave him presents, and made him for a counselor, and aggrandized.
Aggrandized, all right, yeah, that's a hard word to say. But basically, he enlarged him. He made him rich because he knew you don't put money in something that ain't working.
Yeah, for sure.
What Balaam was doing was working, and he made him a rich man. But let's see what happens in this next one, in this next verse.
Continuing in verse 10, and Balaam dwelt in Egypt, in honor with all these nobles of the king, and the nobles exalted him, because they all coveted to learn his wisdom.
They all coveted him. They said, man, look at this brother is shining.
Yeah.
And he's shining because of what he knows. I want to know it. Don't that happen in America?
Sure enough.
You know a little something, they want to be your friend, they want to befriend you.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get this understanding and knowledge, and once they get it, they cut you out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you see this avarice here, right? But we'll continue reading. Balaam, he had great honor with the nobles and kings. Now keep the nobles in mind. Again, he's at the top. These ain't with the lay folk. He is at the top, at the height of that power structure at that time in Egypt. We'll continue reading.
Continuing in verse 11. And in the 130th year of Israel's going down to Egypt, Pharaoh dreamed that he was sitting upon his kingly throne, and lifted up his eyes and saw an old man standing before him.
Pay very close attention to this. This is very important. Pay very close attention to this. We'll continue reading.
And there were scales in the hands of the old man, such scales as are used by merchants.
So this scale that this sagacious wise man he held up is like what you saw in ancient times, when you had your gold and they said, they weighed the money to make sure that it was a certain amount. So it was a scale. So the sagacious man brought a scale before him. And what did he do with that scale? Let's read the next verse.
And the old man took the scales and hung them before Pharaoh. And the old man took all the elders of Egypt and all its nobles and great men, and he tied them together and put them in one scale.
All right, so here, as it said in the preceding verses, these nobles, this included the Magi's, the sorcerers, all the principal ones, all the ones that set the rules, that were getting their rules from somebody, and we'll get that later in class, that perpetuated this wickedness. He put them all on one scale. Let's continue to read. And what did he put on the other side?
And he took a milk kid and put it into the other scale, and the kid preponderated over all.
So who can tell me what is a kid? We'll do some. There is a goat. He took a goat and put it on the other side, and it said it preponderated, meaning that it weighed heavier, it weighed more. So it tilted the scale. He put the goat on one side, the goat went down. All these magi and sorcerers, they went up on the other side. So this goes back into what we talked about, what Paul was talking about. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Their spiritual power is less than the Most High spiritual power. This sin offering and things that they're going to come about later, we'll just give it away for the sake of time, was going to overpower their spiritual power. This is what this scale means. This is what's taking place here. And this vision troubled the Pharaoh. But we'll continue reading.
Continuing in verse 15. And Pharaoh was astonished at this dreadful vision, why the kid should preponderate over all. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And Pharaoh rose up early in the morning and called all his servants and related to them the dream, and the men were greatly afraid. And the king said to all his wise men, Interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dreamed, that I may know it. And Balaam the son of Beor answered the king and said unto him, This means nothing else but a great evil that will spring up against Egypt in the latter days.
Now look at this here. Balaam knew.
Yeah.
We already knew he knew, because in Numbers it says, look, you can't curse what Abraham is blessed. And you got to get them to trespass to do a certain thing. But you notice how he didn't divulge that information.
Yeah.
Right? Because already in his mind, he had an exit plan. He's like, look, you're not going to beat them, but we're going to continue reading. I don't want to get off track, but he says that he answered him. He said, this means nothing else but a great evil will spring up against Egypt in the latter days. So this is no different like when we look at the account of Abraham, right? When Abraham was being born, it was the Magi's and the sorcerers that looked at the constellation and was like, oh, snap. Abraham is about to be born.
Yeah.
And this man is going to usurp Nimrod's power. And so what did they do? We're going to get more into it in the class, but this is the same playbook. It's the exact same playbook. But we'll continue reading, Ibram.
Continuing in verse 19. For a son will be born to Israel, who will destroy all Egypt and its inhabitants, and bring forth the Israelites from Egypt with a mighty hand. Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Israel and their expectations, before this evil arise against Egypt.
All right, and if you would, Kahan, chapter 59 and verse 20. So here I want you to pay close attention. In verse 20 it says, Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Israel and their expectation. Well, where did they get this hope from? They got it from Joseph.
Yeah.
Right? Joseph communicated the prophecies to all the princes of the 12 tribes, right? At that time, they were living good because they had prosperity through Joseph. They were living good until that old ruling regime passed away and a new regime rose up. Now they were going to start experiencing a harsh captivity because they were still in captivity. I think people lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Just because Joseph was second in command, he had favor from Pharaoh, he had riches and different things. That wasn't his land.
Yeah.
He wasn't the governor. There was still a captivity, but it was a peaceful time. Now they're experiencing a hardship. So he explained to them, like, look, what the Most High showed Abraham. They're going to go into captivity for X amount of years, for 400 years, and this and that, but he's going to bring you out. So this was the hope and expectation that they were going to leave this captivity. But we'll read it here. If we go to Joshua chapter 59 and verse 20, and we read verse 20 to 22.
And Joseph lived in the land of Egypt 93 years, and Joseph reigned over all Egypt 80 years. And when the days of Joseph grew nigh that he should die, he sent and called for his brethren and all his father's household. And they all came together and sat before him. And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto the whole family of his father's household, Behold, I die, and Abba Yahweh will surely visit you and bring you up from this land to the land which he swore to your fathers to give to them.
So they had this expectation. They knew once they got into the promised land, they was like, this is going to be for Asher. This is going to be for Naphtali. This is going to be for Judah, Benjamin. They were going to the land of milk and honey. All this was explained to them.
Yeah.
So this is the reason why they had the hope and expectation. And it's a good plug for the book, Get Messianic Faith, so you can understand what hope is, right? They couldn't see it, but they were expecting it. And as we already know, and we read the story, the Most High proved himself to him.
Yeah.
They got proof and evidence that the Most High exists, and that thing happened. So if you would, Ibram, let's get Jubilees chapter 48 and verse 1. So here they had a hope and expectation they were going to leave. We saw that the Pharaoh had this vision that this kid was going to, or this goat, which represented the sin offering, the spiritual power of Israel, was going to overpower Egypt's power, their witchcraft, and the things that they did. So we're going to move further along with that thought in mind. Now, as we talked about, who makes the rules, right? Pharaoh and them just parrot the rules that are given to them, right? To perpetuate this evil and wicked system. Now we're going to see the wicked man behind the curtain, or that scene in Oz. Who's the man behind the curtain? Who's causing all these things? We're going to see what this is, and this relates back to what we read in Ephesians. But if you get it, Ibram, Jubilees chapter 48, and we'll start with verse 1.
And in the 6th year of the 3rd week of the 49th Jubilee, thou didst depart and dwell the land of Midian 5 weeks and 1 year. And thou didst return unto Egypt in the 2nd week, in the 2nd year of the 15th Jubilee.
All right, so here this is a chronicling. This is giving you the history or a rundown of the events that took place in Egypt at this time. But it reveals a very important thing. And we'll read verse 2.
And thou thyself knowest what he spake unto thee on Mount Sinai, and what Prince Mastema desired to do with thee.
Prince Mastema, we've heard that before. We've heard that before. We'll do class participation. Who was Prince Mastema? Khan, he was a chief persecutor in the courts. He's a chieftain. And so we see this when we go, I think it was in Jasher, when Noah gave the sin offering for the world. After the ark had landed, he petitioned the Most High. He said, look, I will destroy all these evil spirits of sin.
Yeah.
The Most High was going to do it.
Jubilees 10.
Jubilees 10, okay. Was going to do it. Until Mastema stepped in. He's like, nah, let's slow down for a minute.
Let's not be too zealous now.
Yeah, let's don't be too zealous. You know, how am I going to do my work? How am I going to be a CEO and do what I need to do if you destroy all of us? You have to give me control of some of them. And the Most High made the decision to keep 10% out of that 90. Now, that was back then. So sin was at a low point then. Now it's at an all-time high.
All-time high.
It's at an all-time high. And what comes to mind, the reason why I say that is because and I don't have it right offhand, but I'll just speak. Paul said that death reigned from Adam to Moses. What does that mean? Until that sin offering came, sin was in power.
Yeah.
It was doing a thing. And so now we have the principality, the ruler, who's setting the rules, who communicating it to the people that are in covenant with him on the earth to make you do a certain thing, to perpetuate this wicked system that he's established. It was Prince Mastema. And take it from the top again, if you would, Ibram. Let's read verse 2 again.
Jubilees 48, verse 2. And thou thyself knowest what he spake unto thee on Mount Sinai, and what Prince Mastema desired to do with thee when thou wast returning to Egypt. On the way then, when thou didst meet him at the lodging place, did he not with all his power seek to slay thee and deliver the Egyptians out of thy hand, when he saw that thou was sent to execute judgment and vengeance on the Egyptians?
So he knew that. The things that Moses was doing when he was confronting the Pharaoh and petitioning to let his people go. You know, the scene where when he first met him, he had the rod of God, go check out the class.
Yeah.
He had this rod, and this rod did things. It turned into a serpent. And Pharaoh's like, oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
He had his magi's and sorcerers come down. They threw down their staff, and they turned into serpents.
Yeah, he called it a cheap magician's trick.
Yeah, cheap magician's trick. Until that big serpent ate all their serpents, and he couldn't replicate it. Right? But this is an example of that. And so they knew that he carried this. Well, Mastema knew. And so Mastema hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and this is why their labors increased. And so we'll go on from there. We'll read verse 4.
Jubilees 48, verse 4. And I delivered thee out of his hand, and thou didst perform the signs and wonders which thou wast sent to perform in Egypt against Pharaoh, and against all his houses, and against his servants and all his people. And the Most High executed a great vengeance on them of Israel's sake, and he smote them through the plagues of blood and frogs, lice and dog flies, and malignant boils breaking forth in blands, and their cattle by death, and by hailstones thereby he destroyed everything that grew for them, and by locusts which devoured the residue which had been left by the hail, and by darkness, and by death in the firstborn of men and animals, and on all their idols the Most High took vengeance and burned them with fire.
All right, so here, let's move down to verse 9.
And the prince Mastema stood up against thee, and sought to cast thee into the hands of Pharaoh. And he helped the Egyptian sorcerers. And they stood up and wrought before thee the evils indeed. We permitted them to work, but the remedies we did not allow to be wrought by their hands.
So listen to this. The Most High allowed some of that stuff to work.
Yeah.
As it says here. It permitted them to work, right? You know, the Shoma thing, you know. But with the plagues and everything, they could replicate a couple of them, but they couldn't do nothing to stop them, right? He said, I permitted them to let them work so they could see a thing, but it still made Pharaoh's heart hard. He was like, I'm not letting them go, you know. If you would, Gabriel, let's get Exodus chapter 7, and we'll read verse 7 through 11.
And Moses was 80 old, and Aaron 83 old, when he spake unto Pharaoh. And the Most High spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take the rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as Yahweh had commanded them. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. And Pharaoh also called his wise men the sorcerers. Now the magicians of the Egyptians, or the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. And Moses and Aaron did so as Yahweh commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the wall. Oh, that's 20.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, drop down to verse 20, Salakia.
And Moses and Aaron did so, and the Most High commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the waters where in the rivers in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of the servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank. And the Egyptians could not drink the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto them, as the Most High had said.
So it said all the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. So again, like I said, these magi and sorcerers, the things they was doing was effectual, you know. And, you know, just to take it back a little bit, when the people of the land saw this, because of their opulence and the things, you know, the cities and the architecture and all the things that they were doing, they started, you know, developing a certain, you know, affinity to that. You know, they was like, man, well, if their sorcerers is doing this and that, it's producing. They were conflating their success with their witchcraft and their enchantments. This was a thing. This was a problem in Israel. As we see in the wilderness, when they went into the wilderness, they still wanted certain things. Why do you want certain things? You saw the power and the glory of the Most High, but Mastema was still involved, and they still kind of equated success with their witchcraft.
And that's kind of the same today with Christianity. Because you got a lot of folks that are in Christianity are relating their success to Christianity because they were in Christianity when they maintained or gathered their success.
Right.
You see, so it's the same way. And the Most High warned us in Deuteronomy, the 13th chapter. He said, listen, when these guys come and they perform miracles and show you things, which they will do, he says, I'm only allowing that to see if you love me. I told you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to follow after them because of the tricks that they're doing and do what I told you not to do? Or are you going to see that and say, that looks good, but Abba told us not to do that? You're only being tried to see if you love the Most High, to keep his law, statutes, and commandments, regardless what you see anybody else do. Because in some of these churches, Hasatan is healing some of these people. But ultimately, in the end, they end up sick and end up dying anyway. So it's just a falsity to keep them locked in to Christianity. And in this case, with our people, Egypt.
Yep. Yeah. And this is a problem for Israel. Malak Khan talks about this all the time. You know, we have a propensity for idolatry. You know, we see this in Judges. We see this with the Queen of Heaven. Oh, the Queen of Heaven, was a goddess of fertility. She doing things for us, you know.
Yeah.
You know, we have, we're not lacking anything. We have this and that. We bring in drinking, meat and drink offerings to her. And look at what she's doing.
Fine.
Yeah, we see her doing fine. So it's the same thing here until the Most High steps in and, chastens Israel. Now it's like, now you come back to your senses. So we'll drop that. So the point here is that we see, like he saw in the vision with the kid and the sorcerers and all the other people in the scale, we can clearly see that the power of Israel is greater than that of Egypt. And actually the Most High is like, look, I'm only allowing them to do some of this stuff. So, but we just want to point out the magicians and the things that they were doing. And to bring it up to now, again, we have magi's and sorcerers now. Powerful families that run this world. Yeah. And we'll get more into it, that are utilizing these dark arts of Balaam. Now we'll pick it back up, Ibrin, at Jubilees chapter 48, and let's go to verse 11.
And the Most High smote them with malignant ulcers, and they were not able to stand, for we destroyed them so that they could not perform a single sign. And notwithstanding all signs and wonders, the prince Mastema was not put to shame, because he took courage and cried to the Egyptians to pursue after thee with all the powers of the Egyptians, with their chariots and with their horses, and with all the hosts of the peoples of Egypt.
All right, so here at the end, Mastema was like, look, go kill him. He just all-out assault, destroy them, but the Most High prevented that. And so I want to bring out two here in our society now. We try to fight spiritual wickedness with education, with income, with careers. It was the most frustrating thing to me when, when the Most High began to show me things and I was still in these circles, and it was really us with Hebrews, other black folk talking about the black plight in America. And I was like, why don't we just try it the Most High's way? Right? But they would go around in circles and circles. Well, no, you need to get more education. Yeah. You need to make a life here. You need to do this and you need to do that.
Got to build the economic base, brother.
Yeah, economic base.
We need to all come together financially.
But are oblivious to, we've done these things.
Yeah.
After the slavery that we endured, nobody else has went through that. Right? This chattel slavery that we went through. And then you look at the Reconstruction period, and you look at Black Wall Street.
10 years.
Right.
It took for that.
Looking good, and they had their own businesses, and they had their own economy, and they had their own communal thing. And it was destroyed.
Yeah. They became doctors, lawyers, business owners, everything. 10 years.
In the crucible of hatred. We talking about the crucible. I mean, at the hottest point there was, and you barely had anything, and it was taken away. So these things don't work. Even in a society, we can't make a home of this place, right? We got to wear it like a loose garment. When it's time to go, take that thing off. It's time to go.
Bounce.
Right? So, but we can drop that. So here, this is witchcraft, this point. that we're going over, this was at the epicenter that caused, or one of the things that caused Egypt to be great. And we see that here now, right? The way we see that here now, we're going to get more into it later in this class. We're going to touch on it a little bit, but we see that this witchcraft helped make Egypt great, make it rise. So here we'll go to the next point we talked about a little bit before, is abortions, right? So this is another thing that they were doing in ancient Egypt, right, that we see here now. And why is abortion important, right? Now, we know that it's completely wicked according to our statutes, that abortion is prohibited, you know. That is murder, right? And so Egypt was performing abortions, and if you would, Ibram, under abortions, let's look at the earliest reference to abortion that we have now, from any society that we have now written down, is the earliest recorded abortion. And when you have it, we'll read it, Ibram.
Abortion today, at least in the United States.
Oh, no. Right under the header of abortions, the earliest references to abortion be highlighted.
Right above what you were starting of.
Right above.
So the early references to abortions are contained in ancient Egypt papyrus, written about 3,500 years ago. The Eber Papyrus, a medical test, suggested around 1500 BC that abortions could be induced using a plant fiber tampon coated with a compound that included honey and crushed dates.
So here, where did they get this knowledge from? Right? So you heard it here. This is recorded. This is not conjecture. This is not hyperbole. This is written down on an ancient text. The only text that they found, the earliest recorded abortion happened in Egypt. Now, when we talk about what we're going to get into, they had the midwives, you know what I mean, to abort babies, but the babies had to come out. That's still aborting them, right? They had to kill the male children. They cast them in rivers, or they, stabbed them with the sword, or did whatever. But here, when they didn't want a child, they had a compound, some type of pharmakia on a tampon that a woman inserted in her to destroy the baby. And this is recorded. And it was Egypt that was behind it. So here you can see another thing with Egypt. In their height of their glory, they're known for medicine.
Yeah.
Right? And to get into it a little more, what is that? The Hippocratic Oath, which is a Greek. He made this Hippocratic Oath that doctors have to take when you...
Yeah, do no harm.
Yeah, do no harm and all that. As you can see that they stole that. It didn't start with no... whatever that guy's name was. I can't even pronounce his name. This was in Egypt. This is the knowledge that they had. But again, where did they get the rules from to govern this behavior?
Yeah.
Right? What principality has explained this is what you do to get rid of these babies? Right? But before we get into that, now we're going to correlate it to America. This really, man, it's almost like genocide. It's at pandemic proportions.
It is
as
genocide.
It relates to it is genocide. Yeah. If you would, Ibram, right under or Congabar, you're already there, where it says abortion is ancient history long before Roe. Women terminated pregnancies.
Yeah.
Read the part where it says abortion today.
Abortion today, at least in America or the United States, is a political, legal, and moral powder keg.
Yeah, so this thing here, you start talking about abortion, it separate families. You start talking about politics and, the woman has a right to do this. No, she don't have the right to do that. You got people going to abortion clinics, killing doctors or blowing up clinics and stuff like that. This is the powder keg. It's a very sensitive subject. But we'll continue reading.
But for a long stretch of history, terminating an unwanted pregnancy, especially in the early stages, was a relatively uncontroversial fact of life, historian says.
So back then, it was nothing. That lets you know that how wicked it is. We don't want the baby, they just destroy it, right? They're not operating under the rules that Abba Yahweh set for us, right? The law, statutes, and commandments. They're operating by the rules and the conditions by Mastema and the other chieftains of Satan. But we'll continue reading.
It says, Egyptian papyrus, Greek plays, Roman coins, and medieval biographies of saints, medical and midwifery manuals, and Victorian newspapers and pamphlets reveal that abortion was more common in pre-modern times than people might think.
So basically they said it was rampant before modern times. So the times we're talking about now, they was, aborting babies at a high rate, But most people think, they think, they're thinking in a modern mindset. But back then they wasn't thinking like that, which makes sense when you talk about Molech and the sacrificing the children and the different things like that. This was commonplace, right? And unfortunately, we have some of that in our history, where some of our ancestors were eating their own children.
Yeah.
Right? So, but let me give you some numbers to show you how bad this is as it relates to us. Now, I know every black person in America is not Hebrew, but most of us are, right? Let's look at this. The total number of abortions done by blacks. So the total population of people in the U.S. is 341,784,857 people. This comes from census.gov, if you want to look into it, and these estimates were made July 1st, 2025. So this is just a year ago. A year ago, there were 341.7 million people in America. Now, out of that population, the number of blacks in the U.S. makes up 13%, 13.7%. So if you take 13.7% of that 341.7 million people, that's roughly 46,824,000 people. That's how many black people were in America, according to the census at that time. These are rough figures, but this is coming from a government website from the census. Now look at this. The number of abortions by black patients, again, let me read. The number of abortion by black patients is 42.9%.
That's heavy.
We make up 13.7% of the population. That's 46 million people. Out of 46 million people, 42.9% of babies are being aborted, and that number comes to 20 million people, 20 million babies.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
And it's probably higher than that.
You talking about learning the ways of your oppressor, learning the wickedness of this society. I tell black folk all the time, they be saying certain stuff, and sometimes I just say, it's like you belong to Abba. You can't do what they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We belong to Abba. And this number is high, but we've taken on the ways of the oppressor. We've taken on the way of this Egyptian spirit for whatever reason. There's a multitude of reasons why a woman have an abortion. Some say now, I'm trying to, pursue my career.
It's my body. I could do what I want to do with it.
One night stand to this and to that, and so these are very grave numbers as it relates to us, and you only can imagine how this provokes the Most High, right? So, but this goes into it. If you would, Congabar, we'll get Enoch 69. So now let's look at the principality or the ruler that has established this type of knowledge in the world today.
Enoch 69 and 12. And the fifth was named Casdasia. This is he who showed the children of men all the wicked smitings of spirits and demons, and the smiting of embryos in the womb, that it may pass away, and the smiting of the soul, the bites of the serpent, and the smiting which befall throughout the noontide heat, the sons of the serpents named Tabaet.
So Casdasia, one of the fifth day fallen, one of the chieftains of Hasatan, gave this to Gideon, right? The children of Cain, showed them how to do these things to men. And they were doing it during that time, before, pre-flood, post-flood. You think, all them children of Cain, they was just having wanton, illicit type stuff, as the scripture talks about. So babies are produced by that.
Yeah.
They's like, I don't want no baby. And so it's like, you don't want a baby. Casdasia gave you the knowledge on how to destroy it. Now we talk about this time. This knowledge existed in Mitzrayim in the beginning with Nimrod. You don't think Nimrod was having abortions? Yes. He had the knowledge on how to perform them, and it just went through time, and it just evolved. And so now Egypt, in this time period that we're talking about, has this ancient knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? So let's, if we can get one of the engineers to pull up this map of the United States. I want to bring this out with the total number of abortions by blacks. I should say by Hebrews. Sometimes I don't like saying black, but I don't know if it's up. Is it up?
Yeah, it's up. Yep.
Okay. And if you would, Khan, if you could speak on that.
All right, so we have here, right? We have the eugenics program, right, which we understand that the eugenics program is a program that was dealing with supremacy, and in supremacy, they felt that anybody who was black or handicapped or somehow unfortunate or non-white, as we should say, where the eugenics program came from. But a part of that eugenics program was dealing with getting rid of these folks that were undesirable by way of abortion, which was a small part of it. Right? So we bring this up because we want to bring up, number one, the progenitor. Bear with me for a minute. Let me get it here because I don't have it over there yet. So we have, let me pull this up real quick for you. Just bear with me for a minute.
Bringing up Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, exactly. You have that already in there or no?
Well, I have something I could speak on it, I guess.
Yeah,
a little
go
bit.
right ahead.
So Margaret Sanger is the poster woman for birth control. She actually coined the term birth control, right? And as Gabari is talking about, she is involved in eugenics. So eugenics is an ideology that is wrapped around white superiority, right? And so they wanted this utopian type society. They didn't want undesirables, and we know what the code word for undesirable is. That was us, people of color, right? To get rid of them. And the irony of this is Margaret Sanger was very poor. She didn't come from any money, any wealth, you know what I'm saying? But again, it's these principalities. He uses these vessels to promote his message and to perpetuate this system, and she was chosen, right? But she was a prominent advocate for contraception, eugenics, population control, and abortion, best known for founding the American Birth Control League, the immediate predecessor of the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. So she started Planned Parenthood. She is the one that, she was heavily a feminist, right? My body, I have to say what comes out, that sort of thing. And so they created these Planned Parenthood in clinics, usually in poor neighborhoods, our neighborhoods, at that time, because we were the only one, when she was around like, post-Reconstruction era, you know what I'm saying? So, we were the undesirables. She didn't, she performed there was other demographics that abortions were performed for, but we were the focus. Because another thing at that time, they had in the church, in Christian church, they had, the Hamitic curse.
Yeah.
And we were a cursed people according to Scripture, right? And these false narratives about, you need to obey your master and all this slave type stuff. So this is kind of the atmosphere and the condition at that time, and all of this stuff played off of that. But let me see what else we have here. Let's see. I'll read this portion here. This is a quote from Margaret Sanger. This profile also provides this longer quote from Sanger in which she predicted a terrestrial paradise would ensue from weeding out the delinquent classes from the species. Let us conceive for the moment at least a world not burdened by the weight of a dependent and delinquent classes, a total population of mature, intelligent, critical, and expressive men and women. So, black people ain't no part of that. So anybody of color, you're not a part of that. You're gonna get, in her view, you need to be eliminated. Instead of the inert, exploitable, mentally passive class, which now forms the barren substratum of our civilization, try to imagine a population active, resistant, passing individual and social lives of the most contented and healthy sort. Would such men or women liberated from our endless, unceasing struggle against mass prejudice and inertia be deprived in any way of the stimulating zest of life? Would they sink into a sloth of complacency and futility? So she's saying, if you get rid of all these desirables, we won't have to deal with some of the ills that we have now that are caused by them.
Yeah.
And so, when we talk about slavery and these different things, just like in Egypt, here in America, our purpose was to be the permanent underclass of this society. We were the ones that generate the wealth for the rich. That is our purpose. Now, we're talking about at a collective level. Now, Hasatan does this thing. He throw a little money at this person and that person, but they don't represent the collective. Once they get their money, they ain't coming back. They ain't trying to do nothing. They like, no, we white too, or whatever. They side with them and forget about the plight of the collective. So as a collective in this country, we weren't meant to rise. Just like in Egypt, they weren't meant to rise. And one of the ways that we wouldn't rise was through abortion. Right? Like with Abraham, with Yahushua, if you kill Israel, we're gonna kill their hope and their expectation.
Yeah. Exactly.
Think about all those. We're talking about 20 million children being destroyed a year. A year. What can be produced out of that? As it relates to when we look at this spiritually and we look at Israel and they come in, it's just crazy to think about. It's something that you can't really fully comprehend,
Right. And bringing it back to this map here about Margaret, this map here shows in the stripes, right? The law was effective. All the countries in where the law was effective for these stations, these abortion clinics to be set up, these are all the states that are in stripe. And it was effective January 1st, 1935. We have here at least 28 states that was on board with this abortion. 28 states. And then we have 7 or 6 that are in dark that were pending, meaning that the states bill pending January 1935. So it was pending, and once they agreed or did whatever they needed to do, these states will also be on board with the abortions. And then they have a lot less that were not on board at the particular time, but even at that time, we're talking about over 30, maybe 40 states that was on board with abortions. And it's recorded in your history on what you set up and what you were doing to our people. And we know it was our people in general. Now a lot of other folks are suffering from this because you got a lot of other nations that are going to get abortions. But we know ultimately that began with trying to get rid of us.
I think the mic is. So we talked about in the beginning, Kahan Gabriel in Revelation 11:8, he said spiritually Sodom and Egypt. So we're talking about this in a spiritual sense. Now, when we talk about abortions, typically we talk about the smiting of an embryo. But abortion is taking place in other forms, spiritually, right? We talk about pharmakia. We talk about these drugs and the different things that they're doing to destroy your mind, the womb of your mind, right? So this abortion, extends further from the physical death of a child. It's also these things that they're instituting in medicine and the different things to destroy the mind. Because Hasatan knows the covenant that we're in now. It's a spiritual covenant. And if you're going to worship the Most High, you got to worship him in spirit and truth. If he can destroy your mind, if he can abort your mind, then he's felt like he's won in the matter. So, go ahead.
Yeah, since you brought that up, we're going to piggyback off of that and bring out this information here. So we found out about Margaret, right? Now, it says the Gates family, we all know who they are, involved with Planned Parenthood, stemmed largely from Bill Gates Sr., who served on the board of Planned Parenthood in the Pacific Northwest, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So they are the ones that are supporting it, which has provided millions in grants and other organizations for global reproductive health programs. So they are the biggest supporters, one of the biggest supporters of Planned Parenthood. Board leaders, the board leadership of Planned Parenthood, Bill Gates Sr., which is Bill Gates' father, was a prominent Seattle attorney and civic leader who served on the board of directors for Planned Parenthood. His early interest in this field helped inspire the family's broader focus on global reproductive health and equity. Foundations and grants. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has provided direct funding for Planned Parenthood families, planning and reproductive health services. And then it goes into some other stuff and all the money, the millions and the billions that they put in these programs. And while we spoke about earlier, what you spoke about is when you're creating these vaccines that are coming from out of Bill Gates' program, some of these vaccines are set up to slow you down mentally, to close up certain doors that you will not be able to receive the word of the Most High. So they're all a part of that. And if we're saying that, we know that Pharaoh in this kingdom was set up and they did a lot of murdering of young children. Well, we got Planned Parenthood, but who's at the helm of it? Someone who is well known, Bill Gates and his family. They're not nice people, and they're not righteous in any way. Because they got money and because you think they're creating vaccines to save the people, it's more sinister than that. And you better believe it. You can do your own research. Do your own research. Find out for yourself. That's it on that.
Just to add to that, everyday people, they looking about how they're going to survive. They look paycheck to paycheck. They're not thinking about the greater things that are happening in this world, the systems that are in place and all of this. They just trying to take care of their families and their children. But when you look at these things, these people come from very powerful families, rich families. And so this is reflective, they're up there with the enchanters, Bill Gates and them. They're part of that 1%, that power structure that's running the world. You talk about Elon Musk, Bezos, and you're talking about the Rothschilds and all these different things. If you go into a deep dive search, you see how they're interconnected.
Yeah.
It all stays in the family. And with this eugenics thing, there was several years ago, and I'll bring this out, we'll move on. They had the Georgia Guidestones, right? they wanted to decrease the population of the world to a certain amount. Well, who's giving them these thoughts?
Yeah.
What principality is doing these things? It's the same ones that were talking to King Angus and Moab and Pharaoh and all these other people. It's the same one. Mastema is still around.
Yeah.
Right? Casdasia is still around. They haven't went anywhere, and until that great judgment takes place. So this moves us right into the next point, which is sacrifices. I think we got it well.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we'll move on to the sacrifices. And so when we talk about sacrifices, we're talking about the attempting to prevent the sacrifices of the covenant. Now, as we go back, Joseph, like Jacob, they instructed their children on the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, on how to worship the Most High. Now, at this time, this was the worship as it related to the covenant of Jacob, right? At this point, they haven't went to Mount Sinai yet. They haven't went into covenant under where, as a nation, they were coming under a covenant. They were still operating under Jacob's covenant. So, if you would, Ibron, let's go to Jubilees chapter 46 and start with verse 12. So we're going to talk about the attempting to prevent the sacrifices of the covenant. What are the things that they do? So this is what you want to think about. What are they doing to prevent us from keeping covenant? Now, in this day and age, we're under the seventh covenant, but again, they weren't under the covenant of Jacob, but they were still, had to worship the Most High. But go ahead. When you have it, Ibron, we'll begin to read.
And the king of Canaan was victorious over the king of Egypt, and he closed the gates of Egypt. And he devised an evil device against the children of Israel, of afflicting them. And he said unto the people of Egypt, Behold, the people of the children of Israel have increased and multiplied more than we. Come and let us deal wisely with them before they become too many, and let us afflict them with slavery before war come upon us, and before they too fight against us. Else they will join themselves unto our enemies and get them up out of our land. For their hearts and faces are towards the land of Canaan.
All right, let's take a look here. That last part says, for their hearts and faces are toward the land of Canaan. This lets you know that they knew what the hope and expectation of the children of Israel were. The land of Canaan is a promised land.
Yeah.
They didn't want them to go. So if you relate that to now, the Magi's and the sorcerers that are in those high places where spiritual wickedness is dwelling, they's like, look, Israel is waking up.
Yeah.
They talking about the city of Adam. They want to go back. You don't think that there's going to be things implemented to prevent you and me or those that are under covenant from doing that? The same playbook. The same thing is existing here. So to do that, they're going to affect your sacrifices. We talked about in other classes, Hasatan seeks to affect times and laws.
Yeah.
He wants to affect these sacrifices so you can't give the worship to the Most High, so you can be in perpetual trespass, and so that he can continue to reign and rule over you. This is the play. But we'll continue reading verse 4.
And he set over them taskmasters to afflict them with slavery.
Taskmaster. So now we're talking about then, this was a nation built on slavery. This was the heart and engine of their workforce.
Yeah.
They wasn't paying people to work. They was getting slaves to work. But again, this is not a one-on-one comparison like we said in the beginning, right? We have slavery now existing today.
Yeah.
And it's hidden into the Constitution, right? Mm-hmm. When you look at that amendment, you become a prisoner, you lose all rights. Mm-hmm. You a slave. You know, and I don't have this. This just hit my mind. I'm just going off top right here. But they said there's so much work, free labor that's been given by slaves that you wouldn't believe. I mean, by prisoners that you wouldn't believe. Mm. They're slaves.
Yeah.
And they need the slave labor to make America rich.
And they getting it too.
And they getting it. They don't want to do any of that. They're like, no, we want the Hebrews to do it. Right? So here, what verse were you in, Ibron?
Verse 4.
Verse 4, okay. So he set over them taskmaster, afflict them with slavery, right? And what did they do? This is what we were talking about in the beginning. So the new kingdom in Egypt that we're talking about now, this is the height of Egypt's glory, right? The pyramids, me and the priest were talking about it. When you go back to that time, it's not what you see now.
God.
This place was like no other on earth. It was a cosmopolitan city. The gold and the lavish, palatial, all that. You can see that now looking at the ruins. But imagine being there when it was first built.
Polished off, crispy.
Crispy, right? And just to put this, the class is not about this, but for those that are thinking that the Egyptians built the pyramids, no, they didn't.
They did not.
They didn't build the pyramids.
Sorry.
Right? Josephus talks about this. He gives you an indicator of that, but this is not the point of this class. I just want to put that out of there because Hebrews, right, take so much pride in that.
Yeah.
Right? They take so much pride, or black people in general. They didn't build the pyramids. They did other things. They had other contributions for the world, but they didn't build the pyramids.
Sorry.
It's impossible to do that. But we'll move on.
Yeah. We have an idea of what happened based upon the scriptures, but you guys got to read more, and you got to read outside of the 66. Mm-hmm. So we know who made those pyramids. The scriptures tell you. Well, we're going to leave that maybe for the city of Adam.
City of Adam, yeah. Another day.
But do the reading. You'll find out who did it, and it wasn't the Egyptians. Just like Josephus told you, it wasn't the Egyptians who had the godlike knowledge on the earth. It was Abraham and the Hebrews. And the Egyptians revered Abraham as a god, as a deity. So why are we following Egypt for anything? That's my personal opinion. Why am I following them or looking to them for any answers for anything when I have it right here in my own family? I'll deal with my own family. Thank you. Especially my forefathers.
Con. So what did they do, Ibram? Let's continue in verse 4. What did Israel do? Again, Ramses was known for these big buildings and architecture and all that other stuff. But we'll continue reading. Go ahead and read that when you have it, Ibram.
And they built strong cities for Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses. And they built all the walls and all the fortifications which had fallen in the cities of Egypt.
All. He didn't say some. He said all. They built everything, right? Everything. And what did they do? What did these taskmasters do?
And they made them serve with record. And the more they dealt evilly with them, the more they increased and multiplied.
So they dealt with them, they made them serve with rigor. When you read our records and they say, it's like, look, if you won't do it, we'll get your children to do it.
Yeah. Ooh.
So you talk about child labor in America. You would never think there'd be such a thing.
Yeah.
To have a 5, 6, 7-year-old in mines working and doing all this hard labor that, institution, government oversight had to be created. Legislation had to be made to say, corporation, y'all can't do that. Y'all can't make kids work.
Yeah.
Right? But Pharaoh didn't care nothing about that. He's like, yeah, we're going to make your kids work.
And neither did America.
Right.
They made the children of the slaves work too, as young as they were.
He said, forget them kids.
Yeah.
And those that know. So he made them serve with rigor. And when serving with rigor, how can you worship the Most High?
Yeah.
If you getting up at 5 in the morning and you working until 7 in the evening with rigor, we're not talking about modern day work. We talking about mushing clay and bricks with no hay and doing these different things. And you talking about being Egypt in the sun.
Yeah.
One of the hottest places on earth, right? The strength, like the scripture says, Hasatan seeks to weary the saints.
Yeah.
And that's what we experience in America. When you talk about taxes and you work X amount of hours and they're taking 50% of your taxes and you got to work more to make ends meet and to keep your head above water and then to do things for your children and then they telling you to save and this and that and da-da-da-da. All this is affecting your worship to the Most High. For those that allow it to affect it. I said it won't affect me, right? For me and my house, we're going to serve Abba Yahweh, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the same mindset of the priest.
God.
But this is what they tend to do, right? To serve with rigor, to prevent you from maintaining your covenant. And at this time, like we said, that was the covenant of Jacob. But let's read the last verse. The last verse is very telling, verse 6.
And the people of Egypt abominated the children of Israel.
They hated them
Yeah.
with a guttural hate. Where do we see that at?
Yeah. Huh.
Where do we see that at? Right here in America. They hate you for no reason. If you read the story and the account, they got so fat and lazy because they had that sodomite spirit on them as well,
Yeah.
right? They look at the Hebrews who got their wealth from Joseph, right? But they said that they worked hard to get their wealth. And the people were jealous, envious of Israel. They hated them, right? Can you imagine that? It's like, in this country, they say, tell us, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah, right.
So you create a Rosewood and a black Wall Street
God.
and these all other places, and they tear it down. And just to quote, Martin Luther King, he's like, that's a cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself up to buy the bootstrap and he don't have no boots or laces.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what are you going to do? So this same spirit exists today in this country. A lot of people I get it. Some people, they think that slavery don't exist because they're in a bubble. They're in a society that was built to serve them.
I'm free.
Right? But it wasn't built to serve us. We were made and brought here according to the curses to do a thing, right? And we're doing it. But that tide is starting to turn, right? It has turned.
All praises.
The priesthood is back. We're restoring the breaches of David, and we getting out of here.
God.
We getting out of here. All right. Let's see. So, Ibram, if you would, I'm trying to see. Let's go to Exodus chapter 5, and we're going to read verses 1 through 3 for the sake of time.
And afterward, Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, Thus said the Most High Abba Yahweh of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness.
And what do we do in feasts? We talk about all the time. You sacrifice.
God.
We don't come together to eat. That is a peripheral thing. That's a byproduct. That doesn't mean the Most High is against fellowship and laughing, but we're coming together for His purposes and to please Him first, to give Him what's due to Him, and then we do all these other things. So this is the condition. This is what, why we were supposed to be released from Egypt. But what did Pharaoh say? And
Pharaoh said, Who is the Most High Abba Yahweh?
Who is the Most High Abba Yahweh? In other verses, it says, look, he got one of his scribes. He's like, bring the book of the gods.
Bring his name up.
Yeah, bring his name up. Who is this? He's like, I don't know your God. And I'm not going to let your people go. But what did he say?
That I should obey his voice to let Israel go. I know not the Most High Abba Yahweh, neither will I let Israel go.
Wow. So he said he wouldn't let him go because he knew. And the people that run this country know. When you talk about the contributions of black people in this country, right, and the things that they do, you remove us, they ain't going to have much.
Yeah. And
that's just telling the truth. When the Khazars or Cuddy, and they set up, entertainment in Hollywood, who's at the forefront? Me and you.
Yep.
Sports, me and you.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? These things and the money. I was a football guy, so I'll just use this as an example. You talk about college football, they are making billions.
Yeah. College football.
Right? The NIL deals and the different things that go, and the Hebrews at the front of that.
Yeah.
So you take us away, and like I said, these people that are in the upper echelons, the 1%, the power structure, the Illuminati, no, you let these people go, we're going to lose our gravy train.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to lose our racket. We're going to lose everything.
It won't be as exciting.
Nah, it won't be as exciting. And that's just the truth. But we'll continue reading. So he said, I'm not going to let them go. I'm not going to allow them to go sacrifice. I'm not going to allow them to maintain their covenant because we know what their hope and expectation is, and we don't want them to have their own land.
Yeah.
Right? So this is what Pharaoh was saying. But we'll read verse 3.
And Priest, could I add
Con.
that you mentioned about the college football?
Yeah.
They have them performing and playing on Shabbat.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure enough.
So they know
For the most part. They're going to be working on the Shabbat.
Yeah, it preventing them from keeping their covenant.
Yeah.
Sacrificing, you know? So, but let's continue reading. Let's go to verse 3.
Continuing in verse 3. And they said, the Most High of the Hebrews hath met with us. Let us go. We pray thee, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice unto the Most High Abba Yahweh, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. And the king of Egypt said unto them, wherefore do ye, Moses and Aaron, let the people from their works get you into your burdens.
Man, stop talking all that foolishness. Don't talk. Get to work.
You free to go back to work.
Yeah, go to work. I don't know your God. I don't know their burdens. Get to work. What did Trump say? This is a perfect example. Trump said, I don't care nothing about what the Americans are making and what they're doing. I'm not thinking about that.
Yeah. Out of his own mouth.
Right. I'm not thinking about their financial position. Did he not say that?
Yeah.
He said that.
That's your president.
Yeah, and that's the one that's ruling over this country, right? So, but we'll drop that. The whole point is, that Pharaoh wasn't going to let them go. They were predetermined to do a thing. They were kept there to make their society flourish, right? And they wasn't going to recognize what the Most High wanted. And so they were going to keep them there because the key point is they knew their hope and expectation. I don't want them to have theirs.
Yeah.
Because they're making me rich. You can't find another people to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? No, they had to use us for a reason, right? So, we'll read one last scripture here. Obviously, Moses didn't capitulate to what Pharaoh was saying, and they were doing a thing. Let's see what they were doing, what Moses and the righteous men were doing. If you would, Ibron, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 18 and verse 9.
For the righteous children of good men did sacrifice secretly, and with one consent made a holy law, that the saints should be like partakers of the same good and evil. The fathers now singing out the songs of praise.
So what we want to see here is because they were preventing them from sacrifice, did that stop them?
Absolutely not.
They were doing it in secret, right? They were keeping that law and the conditions of worship that was set under Jacob's covenant, right? They were doing it in secret. It's like now, they talking about COVID. You got to stay home, this, that, and the third. I was like, what? The priest says, like, no, that shouldn't prevent you from worshiping.
Yeah.
Is not the Most High higher than COVID, So that was just an example there to show you that in Egyptian society, they were trying to prevent the sacrifices of our covenant, right? To maintain their position and power, right? And that's the exact same thing that's happened here in America, right? Well, we're getting to that point. Again, it's not a one-on-one, but you see things heating up. This surveillance state that they're creating. If any of you watch the podcast and the things that they're doing to watch their movements, you don't think they can't watch chief priest movements?
Yeah.
When they're watching, leaders of other nations, they're getting assassinated. Now, I'm not speaking that on. I'm just saying the technology they have now is to prevent you. It could get to a point like, what? Wait a minute. This brother is in his house. They doing sacrifices here and there? Stop that.
Yeah.
So these are very real things. This is, like I said, this is not conjecture. This ain't make-believe. These things are in motion right now. And when you look at it, it's nothing for us to fret about. Because if Abba Yahweh is for you, who can be against us?
That's right. And that's what we got to think.
And that's the exact thing that's happening to them. And so these things are being put into play to prevent us from doing a certain thing. Because like Khan Gabaria says, that veil is being lifted. They can't control the narrative no more. Things is coming out, people are being motivated, minds are being changed.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, we got to put a stop to that. So we'll end it with that section. So the last section that we're going to talk about is the architecture and symbolism. So we're going to blaze through this. We just want to show you, why do we have Egyptian symbolism in architecture in the United States? You figure you create a country, you have your own.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Why are they incorporating, certain imagery and certain things that the Egyptians were using that was originated and based on their worship? Now you can't change that. You can't flip it and say, the origin of this thing. They try to say that all the time. It's like, we can change the origin because, it means this now. It don't mean that.
Yeah.
No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at some of the architecture. Some of you already know the Washington Monument when we talk about the obelisk. That was a very meaningful thing in their order of worship in Egypt. But why is it here in America? Why is it at the National Mall where, the government exists, right? So let's, if you would, Ivory, let's go to, this mic is going. Ivory, if you could, let's, right there where it says symbolism in architecture and design, if you can read that portion.
Symbolism in architecture design communicates cultural, religious, or historical narratives, transforming buildings from mere functional shelter into meaningful spaces that resonate with the human spirit.
So something as simple as architectural design is meant to win your soul. It's meant to communicate a thing, right? It ain't just being built to say, it's nice. No, there's a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And we see that in this country. Things are designed, things are made. These companies spend buku money to market to you, to influence you, to make you impulsive, to make you do a certain thing. Government agencies, the CIA, you talk about the Trilateral Commission and social engineering and all of this other stuff. They're doing it for a reason, to win your soul, to convince you on a thing. And going back to what we talked about before, the principle. They're trying to drive some principle into you, some action, some rule to affect your behavior to do a certain thing. And that's all to support this wicked system that Hasatan has created. If you would, read that first one under the key purposes of the architecture and symbolism, that first point, communicating identity and values.
Buildings often embody the beliefs of society, such as religious structures using shapes to represent divinity, or government buildings employing classical styles to symbolize power and stability.
All right. So again, like if any of you been to D.C. and you look at certain things, like, you're a Christian nation. Why you got this up?
Yeah, for sure.
You got butt naked women and this and that, gargoyles and symbolism of demons and all of that. Why you got this? And why is this here? And you say you're a Christian nation. Keep that in mind. So we're going to look at the first one, right? I think, if you would, Ibram, scroll down toward the bottom of the document where it says obelisk. So when you go to Washington, one of the main pieces, one of the pride and joy of their architecture is that Washington monument, that spire that goes straight up that you see in Egypt. Now, again, we always say, let's go to the origin of things. What does an obelisk mean? If you have it, go ahead and read it, Ibram.
An Egyptian obelisk is a sacred monument.
All right, so when you look at that Washington monument, you know that it's an Egyptian obelisk. It's no other thing. You can't change the origin and history of that.
Yeah, like calling it the Washington Monument.
Right. You can't.
Oh, it's not an obelisk. It's the Washington Monument.
Yeah, right. And like I said, these people go to great pains to establish something. We just read it in architecture. They're trying to convey a message. They're trying to say a thing. But let's see what it symbolizes. We'll continue reading.
Symbolizing the sun god, Ra.
The sun god, Ra? I thought you worshiped the Almighty.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it say on your money?
In God we trust.
In God we trust. But you got an obelisk giving homage to Ra. Right? Let's continue reading.
In your capital city.
In your capital city.
Embodying a petrified ray of the sun, fertility, and the link between earth and heaven. Placed at the temple entrances that represent stability, creative power, and immortality, serving as a pathway for divine solar energy.
So here we see this all the time. Fertility, basically this symbol is to keep America prosperous.
Yeah. And
this symbol is also to show their power and the lasting. They want this empire to last. That's what this obelisk represents, right? And it says it's a link between earth and heaven. It says it's a petrified ray, right? Coming from heaven from the sun god Ra. This means something. It means something. Let's read under the key spiritual and symbolic meanings. Again, what we're reading here, you can simply do a Google search, AI. This is the reference that we're coming from. The gateway between realms. That bullet point that's highlighted. The gateway between realms. I think it's the fourth bullet point.
Typically placed in pairs at temple entrances, they acted as a bridge or pathway for energy between the divine celestial realm and the earthly human realm.
All right. So here, again, we want to show the architecture in America. When it says it'll bring you on ships to Egypt again, you can clearly see the Egyptian influence on America, along with the Babylonian influence, along with the Sodom. It's an amalgamation of all of this. That's what the great whore represented. It said on her head was mystery. And she had several harlots out there that represented false religions. And we see all of that here. It's just a hodgepodge of everything. You want to serve Satan? Go ahead. You got the religious freedom to do that.
Yeah.
You want to serve the Egyptian deities? You can do that. You want to do this? You can do that. They call it interfaith, pure wickedness, something that we should never submit ourselves to. So let's look at the next thing. If you would, if we can have the engineer pull up the pyramid or the Great Seal of America. If we can bring up that image. And I want to know if, does anyone see that image up? I'm trying to see.
Not as of yet. But if you go on the back of the dollar bill.
Yeah, we'll just bring it up.
You can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Pull your dollar bill out. On the back, there's two parts to the seal. The part of the seal that we're focused on is the pyramid with the so-called all-seeing eye that you see on the back of it. So we're going to get a little history on this. Now we're just going to focus on what this means in our society now, right? So everybody's aware of American history, right? This is a land, they wrote a Declaration of Independence to get from under British rule. And they wanted to form this country a certain way.
Yeah.
Right? And so the ruling elite at that time, they had a vision. They had a way that they wanted America ran, right? So you got to look at who's creating the symbols and why they're creating it this way. If you would, Ibram, let's read So we're going to get into a little American history here so we can bring out some things about this great seal. And that part, Ibram, where it says Charles Thompson. Charles Thompson. So once they got from under the British rule and they went to create their government, they had to create a Declaration of Independence. They had to put a constitution in place, to run this new country. And this seal is a part of it. This seal represents something. But we'll go ahead and read what you have on Charles Thompson.
One of the founding fathers of American government, he made the final decision on the design for the Great Seal of the United States, found on the back of the dollar bill. Thompson was a leader in the American Revolution of the early 1770s. John Adams called him the Samuel Adams of Philadelphia. Thompson served as the Secretary of the Continental Congress in its entirety. Through those 15 years, the Congress saw many delegates come and go, but Thompson's dedication to recording to the Debstan decisions provided continually, along with John Hancock, the President of the Congress. Thompson's name as Secretary appeared of the first published version of the Declaration of Independence in July 1776.
1776. So here we see that he was a recorder. He was a scribe. And this man was very important, but he's in the background. See, when you talk about Americans leaders, the first person you're going to go to is George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, these men that were in the forefront, Abraham Lincoln, but you don't think about Charles Thompson, who was a scribe. Now, this is important because it says that he recorded the debates and the decisions, and he's the one that provided continuity. So he's in the conversations and the inner workings of these different leaders, right? And this is going to come into play in a moment, why this is important. So read the next paragraph when designing the final version of the Great Seal. So when in designing the final version of the Great Seal, Charles Thompson was also a Latin teacher. So if you ever turn your dollar bill over and you're looking at the Latin writing, we're like, man, what does that mean? Right? It's a way of codifying stuff. Why you got to write it in Latin? We live in an English-speaking country. Why don't you just write what you want to say on the seal in English, right? Because there's a reason. There's a reason for this type of symbolism and why they craft things the way they do. Did you have it when designing the final version?
Is it under the obelisk?
Yes. At the head. Well, I'll read it. When designing the final version of the Great Seal, Thompson, a former Latin teacher, kept the pyramid and the eye for the reverse side, but replaced the two mottos using annuit coeptis. Now this is the Latin term. So if you turn over your dollar bill, you'll see the Egyptian pyramid, and at the top it'll say annuit, and on the right it say coeptis. Now what does this mean, right? So they use that, it says, instead of Dio favente, right? So why did they change it from Dio favente to a no annuit coeptis? So let's take a look at that. Let's see. I think I might have put the wrong thing. Give me just a moment. I see I messed up on one of the images there. All right, we'll come back to that. Uploaded the wrong image there. If you would, we'll move on. We'll come back to that. And then it says at the bottom, you'll see in the bottom arc, it says Novus Ordo Seclorum instead of Perennis. And so what does Novus Ordo Seclorum read as? Let me pull that up. And you see that in the document, Ibrin, where it shows the Great Seal. It says Novus Ordo Seclorum.
I don't think it's there.
Huh? It's not there?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'll read it. Novus Ordo Seclorum is a Latin phrase translating to a new order of the ages. It appears on the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States, signifying the beginning of the American era dating from 1776. So if you look at that pyramid at the bottom of the pyramid, at the base of the pyramid, those Roman numerals, that reads 1776. So it's saying this is the beginning of a new era. But what does perennis mean? And I'll have to pull this up because this is important in pulling this out. So let me just pull that up real quick.
Just bear with us for a minute as we pull that up. Why is it acting like this?
All right. So here, perennis. So what used to be there was perennis, but they changed it to novus cordo secorum, if I said that right. So the word perennis in Latin, it means everlasting. Was proposed as a model for the unfinished pyramid on the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States, right? But they changed it to, the reason why they changed it because that everlasting had a Christian connotation to it. It talked about the everlasting Father, but we'll see more of that. So right here, when they changed it from, let me pull up, get back in the document here. Annuit. Let's see. Bear with me just a moment. So Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new order. They changed it. You got it?
Oh, well, of the ages.
Of the ages, okay.
Yeah. New
now,
order of the ages.
When we go back to Annuit Coeptus instead of Dio Favente, what does that mean? What is the Divio Favente then? Why did they replace that with the other one? And the reason being they replaced it is because, get back in the right document here. Divio Favente means with God's favor. So they removed that. They're like, no, we don't want with God's favor. We don't want the word everlasting, right? Because they were trying to project a thing. Now, what they're trying to project to the American people is that they're a God-fearing Christian nation.
Yeah.
But they're not, right? And we're not going to get into it. It's a whole nother class in of itself. You start talking about Freemasonry and the Illuminati, these powerful bloodlines. They did not believe in Abba Yahweh. And they didn't want that to be at the forefront of this great seal. They want people to think that, but they don't believe that. Now, this is not conjecture. These are in historical records. If you look in Thomas, the diaries of Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, they tell you that they're not Christians.
Yeah.
They're not Christians, right? But they want to project that. So, but again, the point that we want to pull out here is why are they using a pyramid for that, right? Why are they using what they call the all-seeing eye of providence, which is really the eye of Horus, which is an Egyptian deity, which is a symbol that you're all familiar with, that Egyptian eye that they have. That is what's on the all-seeing eye. And so it's supposed to say it's omniscient. It sees all, right? And knows all. So this imagery that we have with the Egyptians, you see it on the money. Why put it on the money? The money is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're trying to convey a message. The architecture, a building, some of the other architecture that derives its inspiration, from Egyptian architecture is Mount Rushmore, where you see the president's heads. It's all in there.
Yeah.
The architect drew inspiration from the Great Sphinx and these great statues that they build. And he's like, look, we're going to do that to put these presidents' faces in the side of a mountain. We're going to carve it in a mountain. And so all that is projecting is this everlasting, that this society is going to reign forever.
Yeah.
Right? And it gives that context. So with that being said, that is the last portion for the symbolism in the architecture of Egypt that we see reflected in today's society. And there's more. I think there's one more, and I should bring that out. If the engineer could bring out the one image of the rotund, the relief that was painted inside the Library of Congress that you can see online. This one is important. I actually didn't put this in the document, but I don't know if it can be seen online.
You need me to pull something up, or you good?
Yeah, I'll speak on it. They have a relief where they show, we talked about America being the melting pot, right?
Kind.
It's a good way of putting it. But as it relates to spiritually, they have a confluence of all these different religions and everything in one place. Like we talked about, nations, they take the best of another nation when they conquer it to implement it in their system going forward. And so this relief shows Judea, where it says religion. Then it shows the Greek, it says for philosophy. I forget the other one, if I bring up the image. And right in the middle is Egypt. It has a picture of a pharaoh, right? So these things communicate a thing. And they're telling you, right in front of your face what it's about. But, we don't pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So with that being said, that'll conclude the architecture and symbolism of Egypt and how it's reflected in American culture. So,
we can end it there.
So with that, we'll go ahead and that's it for the class. That'll conclude the class, ending with that portion there. Again, just to bring it back full circle, we're looking at the principles that tie Egypt with America. What are those principles? What are those rules and things that you see that's influencing these rulers at that time that influence the rulers now? And I believe we brought that out. And so with that being said, we'll open up for Q&A for those that are on here in the House of Wisdom, and then we'll move on to online and the
Q&A.
No, the other system that we got now, what people
Zoom.
call it
Zoom call.
Zoom. Yeah. We'll bring in Zoom.
So hopefully you guys got a lot out of that. You know what I mean? And a lot out of the series that are here. And this is just to convey, especially the last few classes, number one, that time is getting short. We need to get our house in order. And the place that we're here at now, called America, even though you may or may not know it, this place is not righteous. Everything that is founded on is based upon wickedness. And we're trying to clearly convey that to you so you can begin to come out of her, that you be not partakers of all the turmoil that's getting ready to come to this place. So we're trying to show you that and convey that to you, that this way that we're living is abnormal. It's not normal. It's wicked.
Yes.
It's not righteous. This is not what the Heavenly Father intended for us. So we're here to kind of redirect you on that path and get ready for that deliverance. which should be soon, Most High willing. So, do we have any questions in the audience? Which we'll start first. Oh, little man had a question.
King Asahel.
Yeah,
He said he got something to say.
Yeah. What about online? Any questions online? Let's give us a minute. See if we got any questions. We don't want to miss anybody. I think this is one of the greatest parts of the Shabbat services or the classes, the live classes that we have, is to open up Q&A at the end of it. So you can get all the answers. Most High willing, we can give you the answers for them. We don't shun any questions. What we do like you to keep it germane to the class. We don't want you jumping all over the place asking all these questions, and now we have a whole nother class going. So as always, just make sure it's germane, pertaining to the class, and Most High willing, we'll have the answers for you. Anything online? Okay, we can wrap it up. So I guess with that, hopefully you got a lot out of the class. Hopefully you get a lot out of the series. The series is not quite over yet, but hopefully from start to finish, you get a lot out of it, more understanding, greater understanding on how to serve the Most High, and to understand that it is time now to get your house in order. So with that, we say, may the peace and thanksgiving offerings be multiplied unto you all. Shabbat Shalom.
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 All praises.
Do the counting or we just go? Just gonna get it? Yeah. Alright, let's get it. Oh, Abba, to you do I put my trust. Never let me be put to confusion. Oh, Abba, to you do I put my trust. Never let me be put to confusion.
Deliver me in thy righteousness. Cause me to escape. Incline thine ears to me. Deliver me in thy righteousness. Cause me to escape. Incline thine ears to me.
Trust, never let me be put to confusion. Oh, Abba, to you do I put my trust. Never let me be put to confusion.
Deliver me in thy righteousness. Cause me to escape. Incline thine ears to me. Deliver me in thy righteousness. Cause me to escape. Incline thine ears to me.
me be put to confusion.
Deliver me in thy righteousness. Cause me to escape. Incline thine ears to me. Deliver me in thy righteousness. Cause me to escape. Incline thine ears to me.